Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. I became Tony's younger brother. Chapter 21. High-hanging energy-saving lamps light up the entire factory, and the huge space is divided into multiple areas. Several robotic arms in the middle moved back and forth, weaving up and down, and the silver-white powder gushed out, quickly building the prototype of the boots, which were thick and wide. On the left is a row of glass cabinets, where prototypes of battle armors with varying degrees of completion are placed one after another, among which the lower body has the most calves. There is a circular area left alone on the right. Tony stands in the center, wearing armor on his legs, and the silver-white metal is full of futuristic looks. His hands are stretched out on both sides, palms facing down. The two one-armed robots are standing in front and behind each other. Showdown holds a fire extinguisher, and the other, slightly larger one, carries a camera. The fifth version of the leg energy test on the Mark I is about to begin. Jarvis adjusted the energy output to 2%, and you are in charge of the video recording. Don't be foolish, do you hear me? The two robots nodded, and Jarvis echoed, okay. Tony took one last deep breath. 1, 2, 3, start. Buzz. Tony spurted a stream of flames from his limbs, dragging him up and suspending him in the air. He didn't panic, and stabilized easily after shaking a few times. In an instant, Tony controlled his arm to move in a small range in the air, up and down, left and right. The door opened, and Rucker walked into the factory building. The face carved by the axe chisel has faded away, the skin on the body has a healthy wheat color, and the eyes are sharp, like a sharp blade shining with cold light. The white t-shirt is raised high, forming an inverted triangle on the chest. His arms are strong and his steps are steady, and there seems to be the sound of a tiger roaring when he walks. Lark offered 10 times the price, and Hawkeye naturally had no reservations, throwing out all the skills he knew. With him as a sparring partner, and with the assistance of human G-gems, the progress can be described as rapid. To put it bluntly, if he were to face the former him now, he would be sent to the hospital with just one punch. The console is a huge screen, the energy output percentage is on the left, and countless codes are flashing on the right. Except for the color, the beginning of the movie is exactly the same as when Lark watched The Matrix, and even worse, because it is true. Looking across the showcase, Locke's eyes flashed with distress. The cheapest scrap in it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is absolutely true that the poor rely on mutation and the rich rely on technology. Prodigal Tony. How long is the test? Well, Lark just picked it up. What are you talking about? I can't hear any louder. Quote ... Is what I want ready? Okay, wait for me for a while. The flames died down and Tony fell to the ground. He tore off the wires attached to his body and walked straight towards Lark, the armor clanging on the ground, and he raised his arms to touch it lightly. Lark, let's see how I look. The latest improved version, you have seen the test results. I will be able to fly in the sky soon. As he spoke, he showed Locke the device in his hand. The excitement on the face is hard to hide. The ring in the middle is fixed by a few iron bars, simple but effective, enough for experiments. Flying has been a dream of mankind since ancient times. Soon, he will fulfill this dream on behalf of all mankind. Lark tapped on it with his fingers, symbolically commenting, "Excellent, I am looking forward to that day. Remember to give me a set when the time comes. But now I just want you to take me to see the equipment I want. Tonight is cloudless, and it is a good day to enjoy the moon. The armor is very handsome and cool, and no man can refuse it, but the premise of all this is that the finished armor placed in the room can go out and pretend to be 13 and save the world." Instead of hiding in a dark room, 3 grown men held hammers and hammered for 180 days, a bit exaggerated. Freshness. Anticipation. It would be nice not to throw it on the stove to melt it. Cut, scumbag, Tony taunted, and hurried towards the glass cabinet before Lark raised his fist. Follow me. Ha, prodigal son. Lark was not to be outdone. There was a metal panel on the wall next to the glass cabinet. Tony entered the password, and there was a sound of mechanical operation in his ear, and the ground was sunken, revealing a downward passage. The channel is inclined at 45 degrees, 3 meters wide and 4 meters long. The entire body is made of metal and is very strong. After entering, the view becomes dim. The number of overhead lights is reduced, and the walls are light gray. This is a square space 15 meters wide and 4 meters high. Facing Lark was a motorcycle with an exaggerated shape and tires that were almost as wide as the body. The glass cabinets on the wall are lined up, and there is a pair of tough-looking armor with a cape behind it. Like the motorcycle, it has a pure black style, which suits Lark very well. Batman. No, it's just a bit like it. Lark did have this idea at first, but it was rejected by Tony as soon as he proposed it. He bluntly said that the things in the comics are not in line with aerodynamics, etc., especially the ears on the head. Not attracting attention, Tony stood in front of the armor with his arms folded and raised his head. Let's see, the battle armor and motorcycle are all built according to your needs. They are concealed, quiet, and flexible. I also left you a little surprise, which Jarvis will tell you later. Thank you, Lark said sincerely. Cut. Tony curled his lips and walked towards the ground. The sound came from above. Be careful, quite arrogant. Lark pressed his hand on the glass cabinet, Guangwa scanned it, and the fingerprint verification was successful. Several mechanical arms protruded from the ceiling and began to put on the armor for Lark. Because the flight function is still in the testing stage, this armor is not equipped, so it is quick and easy to dress up. The hardest part of the suit is flying. If not, it cannot be produced. The pair in my hand belongs to the category of power armor. After dressing up, Lark made a few random movements to feel it. The built-in reactor provided power. He only had one word to describe it. Powerful. Riding on the motorcycle, Lark ordered. Jarvis, target the Brooklyn port, start planning the route, surveillance and police are all left to you. Okay, sir, the route has been planned, and it is estimated to arrive at the destination within an hour. The alloy wall in front shrinks, revealing a long corridor. Boss, Mr. Lark has already set off. Do I need to synchronize the location with you? Tony sat in front of the console, absent-mindedly debugging the armor. The whirring sound of the 3D printer echoed in his ears, making him irritated. Can't tell why. No, everyone has their own secrets. I respect Lark, and let me know if something goes wrong. After a while, Tony took off his leg armor and left the console. Walking out of the factory, the full moon hangs in the sky, shedding countless brilliance. Abao led his harem group to point out Zhongshan in the factory area, as if he was patrolling his own territory. Forget it, I don't share your common knowledge. Tony greeted the security guard at the door, clutched his little heart, and prepared to return to the factory building. At this time, the lens emits projection. The lady with fiery red hair walked through the crowd and said in surprise, "Oh, what a coincidence, Ms. Pepper, we meet again, and this Mr. Happy." Brooklyn, New York's most populous borough, is culturally, socially and ethnically diverse, with an independent arts vibe. As night fell, countless hooded boys started to work, enthusiastically carrying bags for every customer who passed the alley. Rain or shine, conscientious, Lark withdrew his gaze and put his gaze forward again. After the fighting class, Rucker exchanged the junior energy detector, let Hawkeye act as a driver, and began to wander around New York. The magnificent era has kicked off. As the center of this world event, there must be a lot of mysterious energy. Sure enough, it only took him 3 days to lock the area. Due to the fact that the battle armor was being manufactured, he delayed until now. On the semi-abandoned dock, several containers overlapped each other and were piled on the ground in a circle, forming a zigzag shape. Leave only a channel in the corner. The dim ruts extend from a distance to the entrance of the passage, obviously not as simple as it looks on the surface. Energy detector discovers mysterious energy. Distance, 70 meters. Energy intensity, 35 inches. Distance, 71 meters. Energy intensity, 50 inches. Distance, 72 meters. Energy intensity, 45 inches. This distance is not right. Lark was wearing armor and lying on an abandoned building. He stretched out his fingers and drew a simple triangle on the ground. It reminds me that the straight line distance is 70 meters. According to my observation, the container is at most 40 meters away from the building under my feet. This building, I'm on the 6th floor, each floor is about 2.5 meters, that's 15 meters, counting the error. These dastards actually hid something 30 meters underground. Was there any mistake? Quote, Lark clapped his palm, his fingers sank deep into the ground, and there was a buzzing sound from his helmet. The rut mark, 30 meters, means there is a base here, and at the same time, there must be a passage to the underground. At that time, Jing Hung Guang didn't pay attention to the angle of the prompt at all, and he didn't even have time to release the bird. Now things are a bit difficult to handle. I don't know how often the base is open, nor where the underground passage is. Wouldn't it be a good idea to rush over and alert the enemy? What if you don't gain something once you come out? Locke opened the panel. A pigeon appeared in the abandoned room, flapped its wings twice and flew towards the pier, its gray feathers blending into the night sky. The situation of the container quickly appeared in Lark's mind, surrounded by walls made of iron sheets, and the middle of the word was black and hard. It is asphalt. Observing carefully, Lark locked a certain area on the wall, surrounded by mottled and peeling iron sheets, only its paint surface was intact, with a faint luster. If you guessed correctly, this is where the passage is. Relying on the fact that he was a bird, Lark simply stopped on the ground and looked around. Manhattan. The roar of the engine was deafening, and a limited edition silver Audi passed left and right in the crowded traffic. Drivers along the way raised their middle fingers. After seeing the license plate with the word Stark, they shrank back in their seats in despair, cursing the rich people secretly. The Victoria Hotel on Fifth Avenue is holding a banquet today, and all the people who are familiar with the newspapers are present, and they are either rich or expensive. Whenever this happens, the reporters on the periphery will raise their cameras and keep clicking. At this time, everyone heard a roar coming from a distance, looked up, and saw a silver Audi driving on the street. Before they could identify the model, the silver Audi suddenly parked in front of the hotel, its unique Stark license plate shining brightly. Tony pushed open the car door, ignored the boiling crowd, and went straight to the banquet scene under the guidance of Jarvis. Two ladies sat facing each other in the corner, with a bodyguard standing behind each. The bright lights stopped a foot away, and the guests walked around. This place seemed to belong to another world. Pepper was sitting upright, with wavy curls draped behind her. Her azure blue dress was slightly darkened, and she was holding a red wine glass in her hand. She glanced at the opposite side and said with a smile, "This Agent Natasha is recovering well. She's even wearing high heels." Natasha leaned on the sofa, put her right foot on her left leg, and her toes trembled. She didn't care about the sarcasm in her words and said with a smile, "A little injury in exchange for the status of a Stark shareholder, no matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem to be a loss. Are you right, Secretary Pepper? I didn't expect you to dress up a little bit, and you're still a bit pretty, just a million times worse than me." She tossed her hair and leaned back slightly, revealing her graceful curves and her hot red lips, which were full of temptation. There was a gudong sound from around, and many people stared straight at this place, and the smile on Natasha's face became even brighter. Her identity was exposed, but now she let it go. It's just a verbal quarrel. Who has my old lady been afraid of for so many years? If you hadn't revealed your identity as a Stark shareholder, I would have asked Happy to throw you out. Pepper tightened her grip on the glass. Feeling in my heart, Lark really hit the mark. This organization holds a lot of Stark shares, and only part of them were exchanged that day. Naturally, Pepper began to fight back not to be outdone, and the two women greeted each other in the most elegant manner. There is not a single dirty word between the words. In an instant, there was a commotion in the banquet hall. Pepper turned his head curiously, and Tony stood panting heavily at the entrance, his eyes searching the crowd. Pepper stood up in surprise, walked over to rescue Tony from the crowd, looked behind him and asked, "Aren't you in the lab? Why did you come over suddenly, and why didn't I see Lark?" Tony answered casually to get rid of it, and was relieved when Happy shook his head, and immediately set his eyes on Natasha. Natasha stood up, brushed her fingers over her fiery red hair, and parted her charming lips. "Good evening, Mr. Stark." Among the crowd, a waiter in a waistcoat was signaled to return to the kitchen and left the hotel through the back door, a black SUV parked by the side of the road. He looked around and quickly opened the car door, starting the car and driving up Fifth Avenue. In addition to the waiter, there were 3 other people in the car, black and white double evil plus Scarface. Team leader, Tony has already left the factory. There is indeed a ring device on his chest, about this size. He gestured. Rumlow didn't answer, but ordered his men to drive faster. The car skillfully evaded surveillance and stopped at an abandoned building by the Hudson River. The black and white brakes opened the door and took out fireworks from the back seat. On the other side is Stark Industries. Rumlow took out his watch and looked at the hour hand. 20 hours 55 minutes and 0 seconds. No matter how funny this scene looks, it's the 21st century and this ancient method of communication is still being used. These are all real people, Rumlow explained. The Stark factory is no better than the manor. The nuclear reactor is not afraid of the threat of power outages. The sensors and artificial intelligence in the factory area can maximize the advantages, and the firepower will only be stronger than the manor. Not counting those magical leopards, it was impossible to sneak in, not even to use radio to contact the people inside. Quote, as expected of the team leader, the three of them suddenly realized and flattered him one after another. At 9 o'clock sharp, a bouquet of fireworks exploded over the Hudson River. Buzz. The sound of an engine came from the silent pier, and a truck drove in the distance. The snow-white lights hit the container, revealing its traces of vicissitudes. The paint has long been dull and peeled off due to the wind and sun, and the iron sheet underneath has been corroded and rusty, and the letter S can only be barely seen. The driver did not stop, but moved along the passage skillfully. After 20 meters, he turned left and braked in the middle of the mouth. Boom! The car door opened and a man in a black suit stepped out. Sharp eyes swept around, and the hard leather shoes clicked on the ground. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Snapped. Standing in front of the wall in a black suit, he stretched out his right hand and pressed it against the wall. 2 rays of light swept across, and the wall slowly opened, revealing the long corridor below. The entrance is dotted with cameras and small black holes. The black suit returned to the car, started the truck and drove into the corridor. A gray pigeon on the roof was cooing. Drop, drop, drop. At the same time, a harsh alarm sounded suddenly in the monitoring room. A fat bald man in uniform roared, "Where did the alarm go off?" The following suddenly became a mess, and everyone immediately returned to their posts and began to investigate. Warehouse not found. Corridor not found. Quote. Xiao He, who was responsible for monitoring the entrance, raised his hand obediently. Report to the team leader. A pigeon followed the supply vehicle in. Understood. This is a 35-degree inclined passageway about 40 meters long. The 2 sides are poured with cold cement, and there are 2 huge alloy gates at the end. I got out of the car again and took my fingerprints. The alloy gate opened a gap and there were 5 large letters printed on the wall. Shield. What an amazing ape dung. The gray pigeon blinked and flapped its wings with a coo sound to observe the base. The huge underground space is divided into N rooms, and each room is marked with signs, from left to right or A1, A2, all the way to G3. There are not many guards patrolling back and forth. It is a warehouse. After collecting the information, the pigeon landed on the top of the truck again. There is a beginning and an end. After unloading, the black suit returned to the car, started the truck and prepared to leave the base. Locke opened his eyes and exchanged for another pigeon, let it hover in the sky, responsible for releasing the wind. He got up and left the room, going downstairs via the stairs. After riding a motorcycle around the building, it stopped right in front of the container passage. After completing their patrol, several agents sat at the gate, took out their cigarettes, smoked, and occasionally made some dirty jokes. The speed of the car was getting faster and faster, which made the group of rough guys agitated. It happened that someone took out a magazine from his arms, and the scene immediately became a sensation. Wow, good. This dark chocolate is good, full of exotic flavor. TCH, what's so good about the black one? Wow, look at this, it's the best, long wavy hair. The truck stopped at the gate. Everyone looked up and stopped paying attention. Now only the white body can comfort my lonely soul. The gate was completely opened, and everyone exclaimed at the same time. Roast, December's cover girl is a pair of twins, really cheap Tony Stark that fool. Buzz, Luck turned the accelerator to the bottom, the battery released energy, the huge tires were running at high speed, the motorcycle jumped out with a buzz, and there was a burnt smell in the air. The distance of 40 meters took a few seconds to reach even at lax current speed, and the cameras buried around him naturally found him. The bald man in the command room pressed the red button without hesitation. the piercing siren sounded throughout the base, the gates closed, and the patrol personnel gathered towards the door. See clearly through Pigeon Lark. At the end of the container aisle is a 90-degree corner, where metal plates rise to form a barricade. Locke's expression remained unchanged, and he turned the accelerator to the maximum again, clamped the motorcycle with his thighs when he was about to hit, and raised his hands high. Bang! Zzz. How is this possible? I rely on. How did he do it? There was a burst of exclamation in the monitoring room, and everyone was speechless. On the monitor, the exaggerated motorcycle took off on the spot, and the front wheel slammed into the container hard. Borrowing the impact, it began to fly over the eaves and walls, and the rotten iron sheet rustled down. The black armor made everyone think it was a movie shooting set. This move obviously shocked them, and they all turned their heads. The bald man was furious. What does he look like in a panic? No matter how good his driving skills are, he can break the alloy wall outside. Hold on to me. Before he could finish speaking, the motorcycle shot out a beam of fire that shot straight into the wall. With a loud noise, the display screen went black. The alloy gate is only half closed. The fat on the bald man's face trembled, and he roared, "Call for support. You guys go to the left, you go to the right. Add the machine guns in the middle. Give me that van and park it at the door." At the gate, the agent squatted behind the bunker, holding the gun in both hands, staring at the end of the passage. The gates are still closing. A missile in the air shattered the wall, and Locke fell to the ground with a bang. The black tires and asphalt merged into one, and rushed directly into the smoke without slowing down. Rucker broke through the darkness with tinkling sounds in his ears, and the bullet hit the battle armor without even a spark. That's why he has to wait until the battle armor is made before acting. The crushing on the equipment can make him push all the way. There was a commotion at the gate, and everyone also discovered that ordinary bullets did not work. Soon, two people squatted on the ground with a big guy on their shoulders. Without Jarvis's reminder, Lark himself recognized that it was a man-made missile produced by his own company. The best product on the market. He couldn't be allowed to fire. The corridor space was too narrow, and he would definitely overturn the car due to the violent impact. Once the gate was closed, he didn't know if he could open it because it was locked internally. Locke pressed the red button with his thumb, and two missiles flew out from both sides of the motorcycle. Whoosh, whoosh, RPG. The dark-skinned guy squatted on the ground. Through the sight, he could clearly see the light of the flame lightly hitting the warhead, and he could hear the beautiful clicking sound of the firing pin next to his ears. The next second, endless light and heat swallowed him up. Boom, boom, boom. Rucker rushed into the base the instant the gate closed. There were not many people in this base, and he took away % of the two missiles directly, and the rest were either dead or disabled. Lark simply got off the motorcycle and called them by name one by one, relying on the fact that they couldn't break through the armor. The flames did not stop, and gunfire started again. In the monitoring room, the bald man hid under the cabinet. His face was terrified, his teeth were chattering, and the fat on his body was sweating profusely. Boom. The door was violently kicked open, and the bald man trembled, closed his eyes and muttered, "Can't find me, can't find me, can't find me." After a long time, there was no movement outside. The bald man calmed down. He stretched out his head and looked around, but found no one. Immediately, he let out a long breath, sat down on the ground, and took a big breath, with the excitement of the rest of his life on his face. Ha, ha, ha. Fortunately, he didn't find out. I almost scared me to death. That's all. Ha ha. Are you looking for me? Boom. After dealing with the last person, Locke plugged in the USB flash drive and strode out of the monitoring room. Detector discovers mysterious energy. Distance, 50 meters. Distance, 30 meters. Distance, 10 meters. A1 warehouse. In the silver-white metal room, there are 4 black iron boxes that are 1 meter long and about 40 centimeters high. There are no gaps in the box. The only protrusion is a small screen above. With Jarvis, this is naturally not a problem. After linking to the helmet, it only took a few seconds for the password to be cracked. Taking a deep breath, Lark opened the box, and what came into view was a cowboy hat, brown all over, with a concave top and slightly upturned sides. Apart from good looks, Lark couldn't see anything else, so he just started directly. When you come into contact with a mysterious item, the path to the extraordinary is officially opened. Extraordinary skills list has been refreshed. The list of extraordinary animals has been refreshed. After 3 reminders in a row, Luke's brain was buzzing. When he came back to his senses, the cowboy hat in his hand had turned into a pile of powder and scattered in the box. In exchange, the balance increased by 35. Balance: 130 energy value. It is worthy of being a mysterious item named just now, and the energy it contains is worthy of the name. In comparison, the energy value of one life is really too shabby. Not to mention the labor-intensive way of obtaining it, it is also particularly easy to cause trouble. In short, the price-performance ratio is not high. According to speculation, the number of items with mysterious energy in this world is definitely beyond his imagination. For example, shield at our feet, it is rumored that after the end of World War II, the 084 items seized from the Hydra base were calculated on a ship basis. Excluding counterfeit and shoddy products, at least % of them are genuine. Now recalling the old face of the black stewed egg, Luke felt a little kind for the first time. After all, who can refuse a boy who gives money, right? At the same time, I am glad that Coulson was not killed at the beginning. His life was exchanged for 3 or 5 084 items. Not too much. Hey, I'm such a genius. Lark smiled and sped up his movements, eating the 2 mysterious items in his hands first and then talking. As soon as the second box was opened, the eyebrows twitched, and the pigeon reminded the port that there was a convoy coming. Support came faster than expected. Locke looked around and frowned slightly. If he only took 3 084 items, the black stewed egg would definitely transfer all 084 from other bases after he knew it. It is not so easy to easily pick up the leak. Jarvis, open all warehouses. He can't take so many things with him. Maybe there is a solution for the skill list. Locke opened the panel, skipped Supernatural Animals, and directly clicked on Supernatural Skills List. Storage space 1 cubic meter, price 30 energy value, no upper limit. No need to flip, it's just you. Exchange. Following the induction in the dark, Locke put his hand on the iron box. Receive. The box disappeared, leaving an area in place. After another cubic meter was exchanged and the 4 boxes were put away, Lark rushed to several warehouses next door to fill up the space, and finally ran to the monitoring room to leave a trace of data copy successfully. Make them look like this person's main target is the secret of the base, and the robbery is just incidental. With a bang, he rushed out of the passage and just collided with the convoy. Crunch, 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 a series of break sounds. Neither side expected such a coincidence. On the left is a black SUV with bright white headlights. Through the glass, you can see that it is full of people, all of whom are fully armed. There is only a lone motorcycle on the right, and the pure black color shows the gangster style. After a second of silence, the SUV took the lead in attacking. The engine was mixed with gunshots, and it was hard to tell who was the gangster and who was the good guy. Lark flicked a missile and rushed directly into the nearby buildings. To perform well, you must look like you are stealing when you steal something. As for the corpse at the entrance of the base, with the help of Jarvis and the pigeons in the sky, Locke easily got rid of the pursuers. Out of Brooklyn, he wandered along the Manhattan coast. Take a chance on today's energy detector before it expires. He found no Keel at the Rand building. I don't know whether it's because it's buried beyond 100 meters underground, or because the primary energy detector's skills are too low. Compared to the Big Apple, people prefer to call New York the city that never sleeps. The literal meaning is easy to understand. That is, New York is brightly lit at night, and it looks bright from the satellite until dawn. Another layer of meaning refers to New York after the sun has set. Robbery, firefights, gangs, and drug trafficking can be described as chaos. As Luck moved forward, he witnessed 2 gang fights in just 10 minutes, and the gunfire opened his eyes. A group of people foolishly stood on the street and shot at each other, and the bullets knocked out their asses. The water is home. While Luck was sighing, the projection inside the helmet zoomed in. There was an SUV parked by the river, with 4 men standing beside it, including an old acquaintance. Jarvis reminded, "Sir, we found traces of Rumlow." After comparison, the 4 of them are all on the escape list of the manor jumping into the sea. Agents also like to set off fireworks. It's strange that the base was attacked and the black stewed egg didn't ask you to help. Lark tilted his head and hid in the grass without a trace. The pigeons that received the order circled in the sky and landed quietly on the branches above their heads. Quote, It's impossible to sneak into the factory, and it's not even possible to communicate with the people lurking inside by radio. You can only communicate with the secret code set in advance, Rumlow said. The team leader said it well, I have seen it today. As expected of the team leader, I admire you. Good morning, team leader. Factory, that factory. Lark looked up and followed Rumlow's gaze, and found that the opposite bank seemed to be his own factory, but it was too far away to see clearly. At this time, Lark found that the clothes on one of them were very familiar, as if he had seen them somewhere. Jarvis, check the blonde man on the left to see where he has been tonight. After a pause, Lark continued. Start with the people at Stark Factory. Wait a moment, retrieval is in progress. Sir, I found it. The blonde man appeared at the company's dinner tonight as a waiter. When he left, Boss Tony just arrived at the scene. Agent Natasha was also there. Jarvis called up the picture after speaking, and briefly explained Natasha's identity tonight. Lark raised his eyebrows, smelling a conspiracy. After some thought he quietly left without notifying anyone. Isn't that the purpose of leaving Hawkeye behind? Prey often appears in the form of a hunter. Rucker set foot on the Washington Bridge all the way north, intending to walk around before returning home. The cool shape attracted the attention of the melon-eating crowd. Many people took out their mobile phones and took photos one after another. The shitty picture quality could not stop their enthusiasm at all. Lark didn't stop him and let them follow behind him. These are all big customers and cannot be offended. Jarvis, have the factory's first model mechanisms been made yet? He was referring to the Stark phone generation. Sir, the materials have just arrived in the afternoon, and the first batch is expected to be completed before the board meeting tomorrow morning. That's good. Remember to send me one. Everything has been fine since time travel, except that I always feel uncomfortable when I poop. What is wrong with me, even before going to bed? Then he remembered it was a cell phone. Life without a mobile phone is like a dumpling without a soul. Dull. Suddenly, 2 gunshots were heard from behind, followed by screams and the roar of motorcycles. What happened? Lark looked back. He's so handsome. A melancholy middle-aged man with beard and shawl was riding a motorcycle through the traffic, and 3 motorcycles behind him quickly chased him. John Wicker. Lark recognized the person at a glance. From the information Jarvis collected on the first day he woke up, and the night he attacked Obade, he knew that there was an organization called the Continental Hotel. Surprised for a moment and then left behind. American comics are like a basket, and everything can be put into it. Rucker didn't think too much about John, he was just a killer who couldn't stand the stage. Lark took control of the motorcycle to give them way. John naturally noticed his movement, nodded slightly to show respect, and then accelerated away from the bridge. Lark was puzzled, and he saw happiness in John's eyes. Unbeknownst to him, John had seen him when he first came out of the subway station. Lark's powerful armor and exaggerated motorcycle made his heart palpitate. He didn't think a 9mm bullet could penetrate it. Fortunately, Lark was just passing by, and he was not in the same group as the gang who were chasing him. Quite polite, the helmet pulled a smile on his face. According to Murphy's Law, if there is a chance that something will go wrong, no matter how small the possibility, it will always happen. John disappeared on the bridge, and the bikers slowed down just as they were about to overtake Rucker, falling behind him and growing in number, forming a queue. Through the glass mask, the line of sight is focused on Lark's armor. Behind the queue, a black bus with a ring on the front was approaching. The person is not good. Jarvis, hack into their communications. Received, searching for the signal is locked, and the invasion begins. 5%, 30%, 80%. DD, the invasion is successful. The target location is the Continental Hotel in New York. Jarvis marked the target location, and at the same time, a sharp and eager female voice sounded from the helmet. Juro takes your people to set up roadblocks in front. This armored man must not be allowed to leave the bridge. The motorcycle team was ordered to speed up and pass by Lark, and the motorcycles lined up at the end of the bridge to act as a roadblock. The female voice changed the channel and gave the order. Zizi, The judgment team is ready to attack. Try to aim at the enemy's head and shoot to preserve the integrity of the armor. Roger that. The sound of a series of bullets being loaded. The communication was hung up, and the helmet suddenly became quiet. Then there was a national curse. Real people walk on the bridge, and the pot comes from the sky. Luck squeezed the brakes, and the motorcycle swerved and stopped in the middle of the bridge. The bus brakes synchronously. The bright car lights from the front and back hit him, and the armor shone with a faint luster. Seeing that the situation was not good, the surrounding vehicles immediately sped up and left without intending to call the police at all. Crack. The car door opened, and the ruling team attached to the high table stepped out of the car. They were wearing soft armor, helmets, and assault rifles aimed straight ahead. A group of 15 people formed a tactical formation and approached Luck. At the same time, the motorcycle gang behind them also drew their pistols. No one spoke the whole time, no communication, no warning. Lark glanced at the motorcycle, raised his hands and moved towards the bridge. New car. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Snapped. Lark opened his hands and looked around, and a man's thick voice came out from the helmet, a voice changer. One more question before the fight, have you really made up your mind? What answered him was Huang Chungchung's bullet. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. More than 30 guns fired simultaneously, the bright flames merged into one piece, and the air was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder. Roots seemed to take root under Locke's feet, and the bullets jingled on the armor, but it couldn't make him take half a step back. The reason why the armor developed by Tony is said to be 20 years ahead of the world lies in its two biggest advantages, are black technology. Energy and shock absorption. The nuclear reactor and arc reactor make him faster, stronger, and more durable, and the shock-absorbing system allows him to protect his body from damage upon impact. At this moment, hitting the body with an assault rifle is almost like scratching an itch. As the gunfire faded, the judgment team exchanged magazines. They cooperated tacitly throughout the process and showed high combat literacy. The armor test was about the same, and Locke didn't plan to play with them anymore. If he solved it early, he would have to catch up with the next game. Lark put his hands high and low in front of his chest. Jarvis, let's play some music. Al, you want a man of the street? Passionate rock music resounded through the bridge. Lark held his hands empty, and a 6-barreled Vulcan appeared in his hands, with a long bullet chain draped over his shoulders, extremely fierce. Due to the angle of view, the motorcycle gang behind him did not see the Vulcan in his hand clearly, but continued to advance steadily and keep shooting. The judgment team could no longer remain silent, and the orderly team began to commotion, with the sound of communication, cursing, and footsteps intertwined. Where did he get that from? Run, our soft armor can't stop it. Retreat, retreat, hit me Lark and want to run. Buzz buzz, the motor runs and the azure flame blooms. The 7.62mm caliber bullet easily tore through their soft armor and brought up large chunks of flesh. The 5 standing in the front are instantly killed. The rest of the people ran towards both sides of the bridge. Jumping into the sea became the only hope of escape. No one is foolishly hiding behind a bus. Under the powerful power of the battle armor, the recoil of Vulcan is not worth mentioning, and the bullets are pressed into a line by Lark. Hit wherever you point. People who had just run a few meters were cut off from the waist. Their upper bodies were broken and their legs were still running with inertia. The motorcycle gang behind them was so frightened that their ghosts froze. They had been killers for so many years, and they had never seen such a scene. The disadvantage of not having received formal military training appeared, and a group of people screamed and ran back, intending to pick up their motorcycles and run away. Who do you look down upon with so many backs? Rucker turned the gun, and even he didn't need to fine-tune it, and the motorcycle party followed the windy wheat and fell one by one. The ammunition ran out, the gunfire stopped, and the bridge was stained with blood. In the face of absolute firepower, all struggles are futile. Putting away his gun, Rucker rode his motorcycle and went straight to the Continental Hotel in New York. It didn't take long for the scavenger to arrive and clean up the scene. Continental Hotel. The short-haired girl was sitting in front of the computer, the light source from the screen shone on her face. She was pale and without a trace of blood, like snowflakes falling in winter. He held his head high, red wine overflowed from his lips, wetted his clothes along his throat, and his chest was bright red. The cold liquid woke her up. She put down the wine glass in a panic, and tremblingly took out a tissue to wipe the wine stains. Shet, 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 shet. There has always been a bounty for armor technical information within the organization. The reward is very attractive and will save her 10 years of hard work. Now that I have seen it, how can I let it go? For this reason, she gave up chasing John and mobilized all her forces. Unexpectedly, the advanced level of the opponent's armor seriously exceeded her expectations. So much so that she ignored the way Vulcan appeared. That armored man must be looking for me when he returns to Manhattan. No, I have to find a way to save myself. There was constant gunfire upstairs, and the short-haired girl immediately found a solution. She threw away the tissue, dialed the old-fashioned rotary phone, and calmed down the moment the connection was made. Ta, Winston, I suggest we negotiate. Negotiating was a good decision. Winston's tone was very calm, and his goal was achieved. It was time for today's drama to end. After hanging up the phone, the short-haired girl picked up her small bag and left. In situ, the laptop camera flashed red. Brooklyn. Dozens of police cars are parked around the port, and a long cordon surrounds the area and no entry is allowed. Further inside is a blockade line formed by men in black. The container has been opened, and several pumping equipment are erected by the sea, and the staff stand in the corridor and directly pour water down. Not long after, 3 cars arrived one after another. Natasha, rumlot and black braised eggs. The person in charge, Larry, a bald middle-aged man, immediately greeted him. With a drooping face, he said in shame, "Chief, we failed to catch up with the motorcycle man. He was too fast. He circled the alley twice and then disappeared." Still wanting to explain, Fury raised his hand to interrupt, looked at the fire, and said calmly, "Understood, let them quickly put out the fire and clean up the scene." This is gone. Shouldn't those who fail to do things according to the tradition be dismissed and sent to the desert now? Director, if you mean it, I'm scared if you don't speak like this. The bald man looked at him with tears in his eyes. Fury frowned. What are you still doing here? Go. Oh, I understand. Natasha looked on and shook her head. With such intelligence, no wonder she was still a team leader after working for 10 years. Director, the data has been analyzed. The similarity between the 2 suits of armor is as high as 90%. The person who attacked the base should be Lark Stark. Fury took over the tablet. On the left is a video of Luck coming out of the base and exchanging fire with the convoy. On the right is a few robotic arms building the lower body of the armor. Tonight is obviously to avenge the Manor's breach of contract. It is not difficult to find a base with special abilities. Howard is really lucky, with 2 sons, 1 civil and 1 military. Fury closed the tablet and ordered, "Natasha, tomorrow's board of directors will fully support Tony's decision no matter what the topic is. At the same time, ask Barbara to speed up. After entering the Stark group, she will stay still and lurk honestly. She is not allowed to act without my order. Rumlow, from now on, the monitoring of the Rucker brothers will remain the same, but try to be friendly and don't offend them. Put the base aside first. Once the fire is out, go in and check the supplies. If there's anything missing, let me know." This sentence means that he does not intend to pursue the attack on the base, at least for the time being. After speaking, Fury got in the car and left. Rumlow was very calm on the surface, but in fact he complained crazily in his heart, "You are too humble for not being a Hydra." Natasha didn't stay long, said hello and drove away. The Continental Hotel blocked the bridge, and the information was not transmitted so quickly. Winston wears a navy blue formal suit, a navy blue vest, and a light blue shirt. He has gray hair, a ruddy complexion, and sharp eyes. She caressed the ivory-encrusted Beretta 1911 in her hand. This gun had never been fired since he became the manager of the Continental Hotel in New York. "I hope I don't need you today." Turning the handle to open the door of the secret room, Halson, the lobby manager, walked in with a shotgun in hand, his forehead covered with sweat. "Are we acting, sir?" Winston stood up, put the gun on his waist, and left the secret room with a slight smile. "Of course." Ding. The top floor of the hotel is divided into 2 areas. The left side is full of greenery, planted with shrubs and flowers, and the air is filled with a faint fragrance of flowers. The right side is solemn and solemn, with a huge terrace with only a statue, a fireplace and a sofa. A woman with short hair was sitting on the sofa. Come up so fast on the first floor. Winston was a little dazed, and then regained his composure. He walked up to the short-haired woman and stood still, with his hands tied in front of his chest. Now the opponent has the advantage. Master Judge, you can take away the hotel, I have no objection to that, but under the high table, I allow you to retain your influence. If you agree, I will immediately order the hotel to resume operation. The short-haired woman interrupted him directly by throwing out the minimum conditions. She is out of time. The hotel is only minutes away from the Washington Bridge. The armored man's magical motorcycle is certainly not slow. It will take time for the hotel to resume operations, and it will take time for the killers in New York to rush over. It's not right, I didn't even finish my sentence, she just showed her whole cards, which obviously doesn't conform to the style of the high table. Winston lowered his head and pretended to think, his eyes quickly swept over the short-haired girl. Shortness of breath, wandering eyes, hands resting on the watch, feet trembling. Winston was now sure that something must have happened to make her so eager. But he doesn't need to know the specific situation, he only knows that the other party is in a hurry and in a hurry. As for him, the most important thing now is time. A bird rides the wind and lands on the railing, and Winston is on the line. His eyes were turned up, his face was flushed, he coughed while covering his throat, and his voice was hoarse. Cough cough, cough cough, medicine, medicine. Sir, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Hatham heard the noise and immediately supported Winston and unbuttoned his shirt. Unexpectedly, there was someone more anxious than him. The short-haired woman jumped up from the sofa and rushed to Winston. She held his collar with both hands and said eagerly, "Old guy, you haven't agreed to my conditions, you can't die." At the same time, he turned his head and glared at Halson. "Medicine, he is sick, don't you know that you, the subordinate, have the medicine with you at any time? You are still stunned. Why, hurry up and find it." Halson was stunned on the spot. When did the boss get sick? I do not know how. Winston glanced at him in confusion. Do you understand acting? Oh, Hatham pushed the short-haired woman away, picked up Winston and placed him on the sofa, quickly unbuttoning his waistcoat. The boss has breathing problems. If an attack occurs, air circulation must be maintained. Go in quickly and get a fan. I'll watch from here. Winston pinched his buttocks with the hand hidden behind his back, his body trembled, and it seemed that he was about to die. Quick! The short-haired woman stood up in panic and ran towards the elevator. Privately ordered the arrest of the armored man, resulting in the entire adjudication team being wiped out. If she fails the mission at the Continental Hotel, she will be dead when she returns to the headquarters. Winston couldn't die, at least not before agreeing to the conditions. Thinking of this, she walked faster. The short-haired girl opened the door, but she didn't want to hit the steel plate with a bang. You are in such a hurry, where do you want to go? Lark grabbed her neck, lifted her in the air, and walked out of the building step by step. The short-haired girl made a ho-ho sound, trying to break apart the iron palm with her hands, her feet flapping in the air. The two people on the rooftop also noticed the movement here. Halson subconsciously took a step forward and blocked Winston behind him. But Winston reached out to push it away. He sat up, put his feet flat, straightened his hair first, and then buttoned his buttons slowly. This armor. Winston instantly understood why the short-haired girl was so anxious. It turned out that he was motivated by money, and when the robbery failed, he was killed. He was in a panic and wanted to use me as a backstop. Good evening, Mr. Armor. Not bad. Courageous. Lark raised his hand and threw the short-haired woman who was about to faint on the ground like throwing garbage, and then took a step forward. The sky was dark, covered with dark clouds, and a flash of lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the night sky behind Lark. The pure black armor brought unparalleled pressure at this moment, and every time they landed, it seemed to be stepping on their hearts. There were ping-pong-pong gunshots and the howling of unknown beasts in the building. Hatham's back was covered with cold sweat, and he was almost out of breath. Lark kept his eyes on Winston, and saw that his breathing returned to normal after a short breath, and his evaluation of him went up to a higher level. Rucker moved forward, and Winston got up consciously to make way for the only sofa, and stood aside with his hands tied. Unlike Shu and Weiji just now, the short-haired woman would definitely not kill him before receiving the order, but this was not necessarily the case. He had never been masked before, and with the strong smell of blood in the air, this person was obviously not a good person. Before you understand the other person's character, it's better to play it safe. Lark sat down against the sofa, and the heavy armor made deep dents on the sofa. Seeing the lobby manager's tense muscles, Luck smiled and said, "Gentlemen, don't be so nervous, I'm not a lunatic, and I will kill if I don't agree with each other." It was useless. Hatham smiled politely, and remained vigilant, ready to run away at any time. Winston asked tentatively, "I don't know what is the important thing for Mr. Armour to come to Guibao Land late at night. If there is anything I can help with, feel free to ask and never refuse." "Yo," Lark raised his eyebrows. "I didn't realize that you are quite good at Chinese, and you actually understand the meaning of the word, come." Quote, "Haha, I watched some Eastern movies when I was young, and I know a little bit about them." Mr. Winston still takes time out of his busy schedule to learn new knowledge. This is much better than those who only complain about the unfairness of the world. I really admire him. I'm sorry, I just worked so hard to pursue a girl from the Eastern Kingdom when I was studying. Winston waved his hands repeatedly and said modestly, "Winston is worthy of being a person who has climbed up from the bottom step by step. Observing words and demeanor and flattering are of the top level. A few words can set off the atmosphere. It's rare to meet a person who can speak Chinese," and Locke chatted with him along the topic. Knowing about it, he offered an olive branch. "Haha, Winston, I really like you more and more, are you interested in having it with me?" "Ah, Mr. Armour is willing to recruit, that's my honor." He glanced at the short-haired girl who stood up, and sighed, "It's a pity that I am in danger right now, and I don't know if I will live to see the sun tomorrow, alas." Quote, "Sorry." After speaking, he bowed slightly. If Lark didn't know something about him, he would have been deceived by him. These words seemed to be declined, but after careful consideration, you will find that he didn't say anything, but deliberately or unintentionally provoked disputes between the two sides. He dared to promise that what greeted him would be a counterattack from the entire killer world, and the High Table will not allow anyone to betray the organization. The short-haired woman stared at Winston with bad eyes, and at the same time wondered where she was showing her flaws, and he found out that she was playing a trick to delay time. Winston shrugged and smiled back. "And you, slaughtered a judgment team, the High Table will not let you go, no matter how far you flee to the ends of the earth, we will find you." Boom, a severed ear flies in the air. The world is quiet. "I said, listen," Lack said coldly while holding the pistol. The short-haired woman covered her wound and nodded in panic, half of her face red with warm blood. "It hurts." But she didn't dare to make a sound. "The New York Continental Hotel will be owned by me from today. If you have any comments on the High Table, please feel free to come to me. I will wait." The short-haired girl raised her head, with deep hatred hidden in her eyes. She gritted her teeth and asked, "What is your name?" "Rackstark." The mask popped up, revealing Lark's instantly recognizable face. What? The three of them exclaimed at the same time. They guessed that the person who has the ability to make this armor must have a lot of background, at least he must be a billionaire. But he never expected that he was from the Stark family. One of the top families in the Federation. A large group with hundreds of billions of wealth. The expressions of the three people suddenly became wonderful. Hailsham was so excited that his body was shaking. Winston tried his best to maintain his image, but he couldn't hide the smile on his lips. The hatred in the eyes of the short-haired woman subsided like a tide, and a sense of powerlessness surged in her heart. "This life, there is no more opportunity for revenge. I'll pass it on to you." She lowered her head sadly and turned to leave, the blood condensed into a line behind her. "Goodbye, High Table." Winston stared at her back, dazed. Lark didn't have so many feelings. Taking over the New York Continental Hotel was just a temporary move. If it hadn't been for the scene on the bridge, he might have been lying in bed now. But it's not that simple to conquer Winston. Regardless of how respectful he is now, if Lark doesn't show enough hard power, he will definitely get out of control before long. "Jarvis, bring the Stark one here. Roger that. Lark's mind sank into the storage space, and after some calculations, he opened his eyes. He clapped his hands to attract attention, and threw Vulcan and other debris on the ground. The pouring grenade scared the two of them into a big change of expression, and, Shua, rushed far away. Boss, we are mortals and can't help but play. These were all installed casually by luck at the base to make up the numbers. Boss, are you, magic? Lark didn't answer. After throwing away the last grenade, he put the armor into the space in front of the two of them. Shish. The two were stunned, their mouths were wide enough to put down eggs. I wanted to rush up to see if he had hidden something behind the sofa. I just like the way you have never seen the world. Lark felt a little smug in his heart. After calming the two of them, Lark began to issue tasks. Winston, give you 2 days to clean up the hotel and prepare all the information for me to come over. In addition, the killer business is temporarily suspended, and only earns a few dollars a year. The corners of Winston's mouth twitched, he quickly stood up straight, and replied seriously. Yes, boss. At this time, there was a whistling sound of wind above their heads, the two looked up, and a strangely shaped aircraft was suspended in the night sky. The huge Stark lettering on the fuselage shows its identity. Winston suddenly had a clearer understanding of the surname, Stark. It's getting late now, go to bed early, and see you in 2 days. Good night, boss. Goodbye, boss. Yes. Luck said hello and whistled. Abao received the signal and ran out of the building. Then the plane took off and disappeared into the sky. Call. Winston let out a long breath, and the mountain in his heart was finally removed. Let's go, we should go back too. Okay, manager. Manager, why does the boss bring a leopard with him when he goes out? Quote. Maybe it's a habit of rich people. By the way, how is John? I haven't seen him yet. Winston was confused. Logically speaking, the short-haired woman left and the judgment team evacuated with her. He left the battlefield, so why didn't he come to the rooftop? I don't know, maybe I went back. Hatham shrugged. Opening the door, the two entered the building. Good things come in pairs. As soon as Lark boarded the plane, Jarvis unblocked the message. The security guard who sneaked into the armor manufacturing factory showed great power, and, lucky, escaped successfully, and the others are leading a team to hunt them down. Along with it comes a video. In the picture, not long after Tony left, the security guard at the door went to the bathroom, and when he came back, he quickly took out a small box from his pocket and pasted it on the door. The door was blown open with a bang, and Jarvis was defending him. He only took 2 photos and was forced to retreat. Before leaving, the shadow Black Panther hit him on the leg. Just after the video was played, a call request suddenly popped up on the screen. Prodigal Tony. Lark answered the call, and there was a whistling wind on the other end of the phone. Has Lark's affairs been settled? How long will it take for him to come back? Someone sneaked into the factory where the armor is manufactured while we were not at home, and he ran away. Those security guards are really useless. I plan to replace them. Locke said calmly, I'll be home in 3 minutes. Don't worry about the armor. I put that person in on purpose. Tony wondered. Let's listen. Lark hadn't informed him beforehand. Lark didn't answer, and sent all the basic information of the Riverside, banquet, 084 items, and shield. After tens of seconds of silence, Tony said, so it was a group of people who sneaked into the factory and attacked the manor last time, and their targets were my armor and your special ability. At the same time, you also want the mysterious items in their hands, so you deliberately let Jarvis let go and expose some scraps to whet their appetites. I guessed it right. Quote. Bingo, chatting with smart people is really easy, and with just a few messages, you can guess more than half of Lark's real purpose. Another important point is that with Tony's flamboyant character, after the battle armor is built, it will definitely fly all over the world, and sooner or later it will be exposed. After seeing the performance of the battle armor, the black stewed egg will definitely come to the door in person, maybe even come to make a smile, and we will remain friends in the future. That's how thick the skin is. By the way, you go to the laboratory and wait for me. I have something to show you. Understood. Lark arrived home first, and he put the armor back in place so that Jarvis could maintain it. Just as I lowered my head, I heard footsteps. Seeing that he was safe and sound, Tony secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately put his arms around him, proudly saying, "I haven't used such a good armor before, are you shocked to the point of speechlessness?" Rucker knows him too well, and now if you show the slightest satisfaction, he will definitely chase you. Lark withdrew his hand, his disgusted expression flashed away, curled his lips and said, "It's not bad, it's bulletproof. What you said, take it out and have a look." "Ha ha, why are you laughing?" "Nothing, just thought of something funny." "Tell me the story." "Ha ha." Seeing Tony's shriveled appearance, Lark only felt comfortable all over his body. His mouth was so smelly that he wanted to sew it up with a needle. Seeing that he was driven to explode, Lark hurriedly walked upstairs and patted him on the shoulder as he passed by. "Follow me." There were a few drops of blood on the yellowed surface. "This is a towel with a length of 30 centimeters and a width of about 20 centimeters, made of ordinary material. It can be seen from the label above that it has been stored for many years. Miraculously, apart from the yellowing on the surface, there is no peculiar smell and it even has a refreshing fragrance." Lark bent down, his nose twitching slightly, but now it was gone. "Illusion. Are you sure this is a mysterious item? It looks no different from what you buy in the supermarket. Tony said you didn't lie to me. If you can tell something is wrong, how can it be called a mysterious item? Quickly activate your genius brain and think of any tools that can, Rucker covered his head with his hands, and a lot of equipment flashed through his mind, but he just couldn't find a suitable term. "Scanner. Yes, scanner. Hey, you scumbag." Tony mocked a little, and immediately started working. Lark rubbed his nose, and a word flashed in his mind, the present report. Curiosity is the gene engraved in the bones of every scientist. A real mysterious object is in front of us, and no one can resist this temptation. If so, he is certainly not a real scientist. Tony sealed the tray and put it in a glass container. Jarvis received the command, and a bunch of robotic arms fell on the wall to start scanning. Light beams of different colors flashed, and the data jumped out on the big screen, and a quick comparison began. Once there is any abnormality, the system will immediately pop up a prompt. People often call Tony a playboy, billionaire, and philanthropist, but they forget that he was admitted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at the age of 14 and has 4 doctorates so far. It's an out-and-out genius. Lark knew that he, a scumbag, could not help, so he obediently returned to the console and waited for good news. Lark calculated that he now has 4 Shadow Panthers, 2 cubic meters of storage space, and primary energy detectors. These are enough at this stage, and there is no need to exchange them. The most important thing at the moment is to enhance his own strength, so Lark directly clicked on the Path of Extraordinary. Balance. 70 energy value. 50 energy value and 1 mysterious item, value 50 and above to strengthen the physical body once. Note: low temperature environment is more suitable. Such a coincidence. Lark was surprised. Of the 3 mysterious items tonight, he absorbed 2 at the base, and the towel he brought back happened to be the most expensive, with a high energy value of 50. I wonder if Tony can detect anomalies. If he can make an instrument and let people carry it around New York, the probability of finding mysterious items will definitely increase. His efficiency alone is still too low. Lark looked up. Tony was scratching his head against the towel. The scanner had been changed to the 3rd batch, but everything on the screen was still normal. I can't get the result for a while. Lark continued to browse the panel. He was a little curious about what supernatural animals were added. Iron-armored rhinoceros, a siege weapon, invincible. A rhino mutated by an unknown influence, when bathed in blood, it will go berserk. Price is 20 energy points. In a daze, his eyes were filled with scarlet red, the sound of rumbling footsteps sounded in his ears, and a cold light flew towards him. Click. The illusion was shattered, and Lark leaned on the chair to take a big breath. Sweat dripped down his nose and onto his pants, turning a cloud of blue. Extraordinary creatures are also divided into high and low, and the armored rhinoceros is obviously taller than the Shadow Panther. Lark had an intuition that he couldn't suppress the armored rhinoceros with his current strength, and there was a high probability that he would lose control if he summoned it. Tony noticed something unusual about him, walked over and asked, "Are you okay?" Lark shook his hand and said there was no problem. "How is the research going? Are there any results?" I haven't touched this thing before, and I lack reference objects. Give me another 2 days. Okay, if there's no other way, forget it. I have other options. Go to bed early. I have to attend the board meeting tomorrow morning. After a battle, Lark was also a little tired. He went back to his room, took a shower, and fell asleep on the bed. Crunch. The harsh sound of scratching against the wall sounded in the bedroom, the sun shone in through the screen window, and dust floated in the air. The quilt squirmed, and a big hand stretched out from the quilt, grabbed the pillow and hit the switch with a breath. Click. Bao had been waiting outside the door for a long time, but Anai couldn't help rushing into the room, kicking her feet, her fat body fell from the sky. Crack. Bao, you fool. Ding. Locke walked out of the elevator in his pajamas, and then opened a door. Outside was a rooftop with shrubs and flowers. There is a dining table in the middle, and several waiters in maid uniforms are placing plates, including sandwiches, milk, macaroni, fried dough sticks, soy milk, and beef, both Chinese and Western. Winston wore a pair of reading glasses and held a newspaper in his hand, half of the cover covered by the headline. Stark Group announced that it will release a mysterious new product next month, created by genius inventor Tony Stark. Last night, a UFO was suspected to have appeared in the sky over New York. Lark cut leaks repeatedly 3 times, recovered 70% of the stock, and had absolute control over the company. The board meeting went smoothly. When Tony showed off the newly invented mobile phone, the last bit of doubt disappeared, and more enthusiasm burst out, and all the directors urged the factory to increase production. Anyone who can sit in that position is not a fool. Such an epic-making and revolutionary product means a lot of money. No one hates a green and beautiful knife. Interestingly, not long after the meeting ended, several people claiming to be from the Federal Information Bureau approached Tony and asked him to install a backdoor in the system on the grounds of national security. As a result, before he could say a few words, he was driven out by Hawkeye and others, Luck's order. The factory was running at full capacity, and the taste was so delicious that Locke only stayed for half a day, and immediately packed up and moved. Morning, Winston. Morning, boss. Winston waved and the waiter stepped back. Locke yawned and sat on the seat, feeling alive after 2 mouthfuls of porridge. Winston pushed the fried dough sticks in front of him and said with a smile, I heard from the people below that you didn't come back until dawn, why don't you sleep a little longer? Luck kicked his bowl and said, don't mention it. That brat Abao is not happy about being separated from his girlfriend. He keeps quarreling with me and broke a bed just now. It's a small thing about the bed. I'll have someone change it later. Locke picked up a deep-fried dough stick, broke it open and soaked it in soy milk for a while before picking it up and putting it in his mouth. By the way, people from Stark Industries will come to install the equipment later, please let me know. Is it your smart butler? Winston picked up a sandwich and chewed it slowly, occasionally taking a sip of milk. His eating habits are still more Western style. Well, I've lived there for a long time, and it's a bit uncomfortable to change suddenly. This is for you. Lark took out a small box from the space and put it on the table. A product picture was printed on the front of the pure white background, and Stark Eye was marked underneath. The first batch of trial production models. Is this what the boss calls a smartphone? Winston took it curiously and opened the package. Inside was a piece of pure black glass, with a ring underneath. After playing with it, he had to admit that this little thing really amazed him. No wonder there was so much news right after the board meeting. Winston put down his phone, and a waiter came over with small steps and said to Lark, Boss, there are already ice cubes in the bathtub, you can take a bath at any time. Understood, you go down. Ice water bath. Lark put down his chopsticks, took out a tissue to wipe away the residue at the corner of his mouth, and said, there may be a lot of noise in my room later, and you are not allowed to enter without my order. Don't worry, leave it to me. Winston said solemnly. Locke went back to the room and closed all the curtains, and asked Abao to guard the door before he entered the bathroom. The bathtub, which was big enough to accommodate 2 people, was now filled with water, the ice cubes exuding coldness undulated, and a layer of water vapor condensed on the ground. Lark took off his clothes and slowly sat in. Even with his current physique, he was shivering from the cold. It took him a long time to recover. The next moment, a yellowish towel with blood appeared in his hand. Hope it works. With a thought, the towel turned into ashes. The gemstone on his chest turned red, and an indescribable heat poured into his body. Lark instantly transformed into a cooked crayfish, and steam erupted from his body. He quickly fell down and submerged himself into the bathtub. As the temperature of the water rises, the ice cubes melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, Winston and Haytham, each armed with a shotgun, stood guard in the hallway. Ah Bao squatted behind the door, turning his head to look at the bathroom from time to time. His big eyes were full of worry. Itching, like countless ants gnawing on his body, hot, as if every inch of his skin was wailing after being thrown into magma, painful. Someone knocked on his head with an iron rod. Locke suddenly felt a trance in front of his eyes, and after he stabilized, he found himself at the foot of a mountain, surrounded by gray rocks. Reach out. Cold to the touch, rough material. Warm sun. There is a faint fragrance of herbs in the air. This is real. In the bathroom, Locke's eyes suddenly opened wide. Whirring. Strengthening is over. Locke subconsciously supported the bathtub and prepared to stand up. Crack. Boom. Lark fell into the bathtub, holding a piece of ceramic shard in his hand, and then there was a series of clicks and running water. Bathtub. Broken. The voices of Abao and Winston came from outside. Ow, boss, are you okay? Lark replied, it's okay, I'll be right out. Lark threw away the debris, stood up carefully with his hands on the corpse in the bathtub, stepped forward. Step on the ground lightly. Nothing happened. Call. Lark walked to the wall, stretched out his hand and pulled the towel into 2 halves. Depend on. After ruining 3 towels, 4 pairs of underwear, and 5 shirts, Lark finally opened the door. He touched his nose and said awkwardly to the 2 people who turned around. Well, the bathtub in the room may need to be replaced. On the first day of moving, the bed and bathtub were broken, and the other furniture was shivering. Ah, good. Lark was eager to know what other aspects of his body had changed besides strength. The Continental Hotel belongs to the real retro style, and the gym has no relevant monitoring equipment. Helpless, Lark had no choice but to go back to the manor honestly. Stark 1 is parked on the roof, and the fans are whistling. Locke boarded the plane, only to find Abao standing on the edge of the roof looking down, his body tensed, his fangs gleaming coldly. Roar. What happened? Lark walked over and looked at it from its angle. The bustling crowds, the endless flow of vehicles, the alternating flashing traffic lights, everything is normal. Impossible. Abao has never been so irritable before. Lark took out his mobile phone. Jarvis, analyze the surveillance in the area over there, and ask Winston to send someone to check it. If there is any abnormality, report it immediately. Receive. Locke squatted down, stroking Abao's head with both hands, trying to calm him down, and said softly. Abao, tell me what you saw. Perhaps it had an effect. Abao relaxed his body, put away his fangs, rubbed his forehead against his hand, and growled. Roar. Black. An evil breath. Night. A temporarily remodeled gym. Lark was shirtless, except for a pair of shorts around the waist. The legs are slightly bent, the body is half-arched, and the hands are fisted in front of the chest. The taupe sandbags are covered with depressions of varying shades. Boom, boom, puff. The fist sank into the sandbag, and the fine yellow sand rustled down. The strength is great. Locke swung his hands and turned around, and there was also a sandbag hanging on the left. The waiter immediately stepped forward and threw away the broken sandbag, hung up a new one, cleaned the floor, and returned to the original place after doing all this. The dull voice sounded again. Boom, boom, bang bang. There was a knock on the door, and Haytham pushed open the door, walked quickly to Locke's side, and whispered, Boss, all the people sent out have returned. The manager invites you to go over. Puff. It is good. The waiter handed over a towel, and Lark wiped off the sweat on his body, put on a bathrobe, and left the gym. The hotel is 23 floors high and roughly divided into 3 areas. The 3 underground floors are mainly responsible for providing news and entertainment for the killer. Floors 1 to 17 belong to the accommodation area, and hotel killers who come to New York to perform missions can pay to stay. Relying on all-round advantages, the Continental Hotel takes the lead in the killer world and belongs to the monkey version of Stark Industries. The top 3 floors were Winston's private quarters, now Rucker's. Entering the elevator, Haytham pressed down on the 17th floor. Ding. In the corridor, people kept saying hello to Lark, including employees in stark uniforms and black suits from the hotel. Lark nodded. Walking through the corridor, the number of people gradually decreased, and at the corner, 2 men in black suits stood guard at the end. Pushing open the door, Winston sat on a chair, and a row of people stood opposite him. The next room was covered with screens, which was the monitoring room. When Lark came in, a group of people bent over, and the white bathrobes were particularly eye-catching in the crowd of black. "Hi boss." Lark let out an, and sat down immediately. Compared with the meeting, he is more concerned about another matter now. Winston also knew what he was thinking. He waved his hand to drive the person away, took out a document and put it on the table, saying solemnly, "The people below searched back and forth 3 times for the area you mentioned, but found nothing unusual. Worrying about it, I launched the beggar gang, and finally found some clues. For half a month, there have been homeless people in Manhattan one after another, claiming to hear strange voices, but they have not been able to find the source. But after statistics, we found that these people died on the street one after another due to the recurrence of the disease." Quote. "Kill and silence," Lark blurted out. "Should be. Homeless people don't pay attention to the concept of hygiene. It is true that people are easily infected with diseases in summer, and anyone who is careless will die. But there is no such a coincidence in the world. Just as the front foot was found to be wrong, the back foot died of illness. Still a lot of people." Lark opened the file, and there were memoirs on it. The time, place, and who said it were clearly written. The Continental Hotel deserves to be specialized in intelligence, and this information alone is not available to ordinary organizations. "Have you analyzed the location where the sound appeared?" Lark looked up. "The last one." Winston pointed at the report. "It's very mixed. It has appeared in most areas of Manhattan. There is no pattern." "Let me try." Lark got up and walked to the monitoring room, and put the report on the table. Winston also wondered what he could do, and stood aside. "Jarvis, bring up the 3-dimensional map of Manhattan, scan the report, and mark the locations of the sounds in chronological order." Received. Building. 2 rays were scanned out from the ceiling, and a mini-city appeared on the table. Parks, hospitals, hotels, rivers, etc. were extremely clear. 1 by 1 red dots appeared on it. A flash of excitement flashed across Winston's old face. As the manager of the New York branch, he is well aware of the power of this technology. If it is combined with his own intelligence system, the business of the Continental Hotel will definitely be improved to a higher level. But the new boss probably won't agree. He glanced at Lark quietly. After Lark's physical body was strengthened, his 5 senses were very sharp, and Winston could see all his movements out of the corner of his eye. While Jarvis was building the map, Lark said, "First of all, I am not short of money, and the killer business seems unnecessary. Secondly, now that official organizations are watching me, it is easy to cause trouble at critical moments, although I am not afraid." "But, trouble." Quote. Winston nodded. If someone else said those words, there would be another concrete pier on the Hudson River tonight. Lark said, "Toxin believed. However, with so many people, I can't possibly spend money to support you in vain." Lark stretched out 2 fingers. "You have 2 tasks next." Winston immediately became serious when he heard this, and Haytham, who was standing behind him, took out a notebook from his pocket and prepared to record it. 1. Expand the intelligence system at all costs. I know what is going to happen in New York before, now, and in the future better than anyone else. The hotel has closed all services to the outside world, and its business scope has been changed to auctions. I will send you the details later. Quote. After finishing speaking, Lark took a sip of water from the space. Winston pondered the message. Translated. From now on, the Continental Hotel in New York will only serve him. The 3 mysterious items that Lark found at the shield base were all around 60, so they were considered half-old items. At the beginning, he planned to purchase and appraise antiques through the channels of the Continental Hotel, so as to pick out items that contained mysterious energy. However, the goal is too clear. Couldn't help but investigate. Once all parties know, they will not give him this opportunity. However, it is worth a try to use the pretext of the auction to pretend to be the fake, to hide the truth, to build plank roads openly, and to sneak through old warehouses. There might be surprises waiting for him. In silence, Jarvis's construction was completed. The irrelevant buildings on the map disappear, leaving only the location of the red dot. Sir, through data analysis, the sound first appeared in the lower city, and then all the way up, converging around the hotel. Lark's pupils shrank suddenly. Winston gasped. Hatham's hands froze in the air. As I said before, Lark did not find the Keel in the Rand building. Coincidentally, the Rand building is next to the Continental Hotel, and the two sides are only separated by a street. So, is it a hand and a meeting? Locke murmured. Black, with an evil breath, he couldn't think of anyone else except the group of ninjas. As we all know, they have been looking for the Keel. As expected, the strange sounds are caused by mechanical equipment, digging 3 feet into the ground. Boss, do you need me to summon some people? Winston said. Halson added. Everyone can be here in 2 hours. On the night of the exchange of fire with Gautai Table, Lark arrived in time and many men survived. See, that's the benefit of having a personal squad. Stand by. Rucker reached out and zoomed in on the map, only keeping the Rand building and the Continental Hotel. After a while, he shook his head and said, no, just stay alert. Chapter 31. The next day, the hand and meeting did not arrive, and the messenger from the high table came to the door first. On the long table, Lark sat in the main guard in a suit, and Winston stood behind him with his hands tied in front of his chest. Opposite is a black beauty with white complexion. Professional attire, high heels, tall figure, black hair draped over her shoulders, plump lips painted with dark red lipstick. Beside it was a black briefcase. Do all high-top tables like this dark style? The black beauty bent slightly and said, Mr. Stark, on behalf of the high table, I would like to apologize to you for what happened on the bridge. What happened that night was a pure accident. The person responsible has been captured by us. Please take a look. The man in the black suit behind him took a step forward and placed the wooden box in his hand on the table. It was square and dark red. The air was filled with the vague smell of blood. Cold-blooded and heartless high table. Just as he was about to open the black suit, Luck interrupted. Slow. The black suit paused and looked at the black beauty. Mr. Stark, Lark pointed out the window. The sun is shining brightly, the birds are singing and the flowers are fragrant. We can't ruin such good weather. Take it back. Hearing this, the black beauty was stunned for a moment, then reacted immediately, waved to the black suit, and said with a smile, Mr. Stark is right, you should be in a good mood when the weather is good, Mr. Stark must like this little gift. Quote. Black Beauty smiled and took out a red document from the briefcase with the word New York printed on the cover. Red represents the highest level of high table. Winston sighed secretly, quickly took it and put it in Lark's hand for what I had been struggling for 20 years. The document is very thin, only about 3 or 5 pages. The content is very simple. It contains the contract documents of all branches of the high table in New York, hotels, intelligence, scavengers, tailors, weapons, medical care, etc. One of Winston's signatures in the hotel is impressively listed. Accepting it means that all the above-mentioned divisions are out of the control of the high table and are owned by Lark alone. Winston watched from behind with eager eyes. Lark finished flipping through the document and closed it. Let me tell everyone at the high table that I like this gift very much. It's not polite to come back without reciprocating. I also have a document here. I hope you can take it back and hand it over to me. Likewise, I'm sure those of you at the high table will love it. Quote. Winston produced a document and placed it in front of her. The mission was completed, and Black Beauty left. As soon as she walked out of the hotel, there was a roar in the sky, and a stream of gold and red light fell on the rooftop of the hotel. After a long time, the Black Beauty withdrew her gaze, got in the car and left. Boom. The battle armor superhero Handsome landed, and Tony's annoying voice sounded. Student brother, come and take a look at your genius brother's new invention, the freshly baked Mark I, it's time to throw away your outdated old guy. Lark's brows twitched wildly. How could I, a handsome, honest and reliable young man, have such a poisonous-tongued brother? Do you want to pull him into a kiss? Open Howard's coffin and ask if he made a mistake. Tony stepped forward and hugged Luck directly, saying coquettishly, oh. Smell this charming paint smell, it is exactly the same as the smell of the magazine twins that night, it is intoxicating. You know, I've been. Screw the smell of paint, uncle, let's see what happens. Unbearable, no need to endure. With a roar, Lark stretched out his right foot and hooked the leg of the battle armor. Taking advantage of his loss of balance, his body bent slightly, his back muscles bulged, his arms tensed and grabbed the metal arm, and made a gorgeous over-the-shoulder throw. Boom! Smoke and dust are everywhere. The battle armor is embedded in the ground. Today's wind, so big. Rooftop, so cold. Just now. What happened? 300 kilograms, carried with bare hands. Jarvis, update Lark's note. Violent madness. Ah, good boss. Crack. Tony stood up and patted his butt, rubbed his chin with his right hand, and pretended to look around Lark as if nothing had happened. Data kept popping up from the mask. Tisk tisk, the bone density is 4 times that of ordinary people, the muscle strength is 4.2, and the body strength is 4.5, it is almost as good as Captain America back then. Instead of cheapening the army's crap, how about letting me dissect it and study it? Tony joked as the mask popped up. After announcing the closure of the weapons manufacturing department, the military immediately found a new baby, Hammer Industries, and ignored him. I like this name. Like the federal police, they always arrive last. Locke let out a cold, hey, turned around and left. You're thinking about farting. Hey, it seems that the other battle armor I made can only be given away, and I don't know if Happy's body can fit it in. Tony looked up at the sky, as if talking to himself. The actual eyes secretly stared at a certain figure. 1, 2, oh, I asked why the weather is so nice today. It turns out that my dear brother has sent a gift. Lark turned around, walked quickly to Tony, grabbed his hand and put it on his chest, saying like a little daughter. Brother, if you give me a gift, Pepper won't be angry if he finds out. Wink. Luke. Ah. Tony. Ah. Winston, who had just reached the rooftop. Ah. You're disgusting. Every other, what about the battle armor you were talking about? Arrive. Looking up, Stark no landed on the roof, and the wind pressure caused Lark's clothes to rattle. The hatch opened, and a black figure sprang out, circling around Locke, rubbing his big head on his legs. It's Big Cat, one of Ah Bao's harem group. Lark called for help. Abao was so upset in the morning that he couldn't sleep due to the noise. Now the Big Cat is here, see if you can't get up in the morning, After enjoying the petting feast, the Big Cat flicked its tail without any regrets and ran towards the elevator. Hey, the world is going down, and the leopard's heart is not old. Lark sighed and turned to board the plane. Inside the cabin lay a box 3 meters long and 1.5 meters wide, with a pair of pitch-black armor under the transparent glass cover. The shape is tough and angular, with red lines outlining the edges, and there is a hint of blood in the solemnity. I don't know why, but Locke has a special liking for black, just like tofu, he always only eats salty, soy milk must have sugar and so on. Tony knocked on the glass cabinet with his hand and said frivolously, I got a new toy, do you want to go out and try it out? Lark arrived in time and Ethan did not die. He is still cynical. Not Iron Man. Jarvis projected a projection in the cabin. On the news, a group of terrorists calling themselves the Ten Rings Gang attacked a certain village, killing many people. Now the name, Ten Commandments Gang, is well known in the world. Countless manual workers regard it as a role model and are proud to call themselves members of the Ten Commandments Gang. Lark rolled his eyes. Forget it, those terrorists are not enough to fill your teeth, so I won't join in the fun. That's right, except that tanks are a little deterrent to armor, the AKs in other people's hands are fire sticks. I can only hear it. Sure enough, the evening news began to report that an Iron Man fell from the sky and beat the shit out of those terrorists. How many women and children were rescued, etc. As if he had experienced the thrill of saving the world, for the next half-month, a stream of light flashed across New York every day. Lark was not idle either. On the one hand, he asked Winston to rectify the forces left behind by the high table, and save the chaff and chaff. Still the same sentence, working as an assassin only earns a few dollars a year. At the same time he released many pigeons around the hotel. As long as ninjas appear, they will be caught one day. You guard against people and surveillance, not even birds, right? As more videos of Tony in Afghanistan were exposed, people around the world began to speculate on its identity. Among them, the people in New York are the most enthusiastic and have given it many outrageous nicknames: Iron Man, Steel Man, Iron Man, and many other outrageous nicknames. For a time, there was quite a frenzy on the internet. This makes Lark very happy, and now his biggest hobby every day is to use these titles to ridicule Tony. Paired with the sand sculpture sentences learned in the previous life, the phone calls always end in someone's roar. Tony's sassy character is unbearable. On this day, the scene of Stark Group's new product launch conference. The guests gathered, the media was countless, and the scene was crowded with people. Rucker was sitting in the first row holding his mobile phone, and Winston was also there. As the host said, "Mr. Tony Stark, please," passionate rock music sounded on the stage. In the center of the stage, a golden red ring slowly rises. Pressing his hand on the screen, Lark's smile instantly froze. "Right. Al, you want a man of the street? Look, what is that? Quote. Iron Man, it's Iron Man, I'm dead. Shit, Iron Man, Iron Man, Iron Man." The crowd boiled up, all kinds of weird nicknames kept coming, as if they were at the concert scene. Boom, Tony landed on the ring, and after a fancy mockery, he said that sentence. "I'm Iron Man, as expected of you, Tony." The scene is very well managed. Lark followed the crowd in applause. Adhering to the concept of dressing 13 to the end, Tony completed the entire press conference wearing a battle armor, and by the way acted as a wave of spokespersons. After a month of advertising warm-up, the press conference was over, and the store was almost crowded by crazy crowds the moment it went on sale. This happened to several shops in a row, and Halson, who was in charge of driving, couldn't help but flatter him. "The boss is really amazing, you've got everything right." Indeed, the people below reported that all the stores in New York are full of people, and traffic jams have already occurred in many places. Winston was more reserved. He was swiping the screen, and several of them were about mobile phones. "Haha, I just stood on the shoulders of giants and took 2 less detours." Locke's old face turned red, but fortunately he had been under too much sun lately so he couldn't see it clearly. Even if he just copied mobile phones, he also grabbed some news media-oriented software such as a certain news channel, a certain Facebook, etc. It was really shameless. The car moved forward, the traffic was gradually congested, and it could only drive at a slow speed, and the sound of sudden braking was endless. When I entered Manhattan, I simply lay down, traffic was paralyzed, and there were long queues of vehicles. Locke looked around and asked, "What's going on outside? There's no specialty store here." "Let me ask." Winston took out his mobile phone and sent a text message twice. It didn't take long for him to receive a reply. "Boss, my subordinates say that the front is blocked by the military." "Blocked? For what reason?" "The military blocked the streets, and in a place like Manhattan, you have to give a reason to prevaricate, otherwise the group of Wall Street masters will rebel in minutes." Winston narrowed his eyes. "It is said that the biochemical weapon leaked." "Ha ha, trivial excuse. Then wait a little longer. At worst, I'll walk back later. It's not far from the hotel." Locke lay back, leaning on the seat, and just opened the panel, his eyebrows twitched. The birds around the hotel brought intelligence, and dark shadows appeared. "As soon as the military sealed off the scene, you showed up. Aren't you afraid of being exposed?" "Winston, you don't have to wait for me when you go back on your own." Although he was confused, Winston didn't ask any more questions and just said, "Be careful." Locke pushed open the car door, walked through the traffic, found a deserted alley, changed into a ninja costume, and took out the taidao from the space and tied it behind his back. He walked to the water stains on the ground and took a photo. He was covered in pitch black with a hood on his head, and his face was wrapped, only a pair of scarlet eyes were exposed. "Bakong, as long as you are careful, you will have no problem deceiving ordinary people." Lark sensed the bird's location and found that the ninja was still in the alley around the hotel. "Well," he pressed his ear, "Jarvis, old rules. Got it, leave the monitoring to me." Turning on the scanner with an energy value of 5, Lark checked the direction and turned to the next alley. It's not far from the hotel and he knows the roads around it. Lark ran at high speed with the taidao on his back, flying over eaves and walls, and climbing over walls when encountering walls. With his current physical fitness, these movements were easy to do. Through this period of training, Lark has roughly understood the scope of body strengthening. He is improving in all aspects, including strength, speed, flexibility, neurological reaction ability, etc. There are no shortcomings. Sun went down, the neon lights on the street lit up, and New York officially opened the mode of the city that never sleeps. At a glance, there was no one in this alley. The dim street lights flickered from time to time, and the garbage bins piled at both ends emitted a stench that made people want to vomit. No bugs flying around. A faint hum echoed in the night, which could not be heard without paying attention. Snapped. The street lights went out completely. There was a glimmer of light under the dustbin. A gray mouse ran into the alley along the base of the wall. Its nose twitched twice, it screamed, then it lay down and twisted its buttocks to squeeze into the gap. Snapped. The mouse was nailed to the wall, and the light in its eyes gradually faded. There was a kunai stuck in his head. The ninja in red took back kunai and stuck it in his waist. In front of him was a pit half sunken into the wall, with gravel and dirt piled aside. A black-clothed ninja with a long knife on his back inserted the cylindrical device in his hand into the ground, and the device continued to spew out mud with a slight hum. Repeatedly, when the soil was about to fill the deep pit, the ninja in red took off the equipment, took out a small metal ball from his arms, and put it into the circular hole. Silver thread is attached to the hand. Outside the alley, Lark turned off the panel and ran to the trash can. Discovered mysterious energy. Distance, 90 meters, intensity, 1 inch. Distance, 93 meters, intensity, 1 inch. Dang, bang, bang, bang. The metal ball hit the bottom, and the two ninjas looked at each other. The red one pulled the thread, but he didn't want the black one to hold his hand. The scarlet eyes looked outside, and the ears moved slightly. Puff, puff, boom. Lark kicked the trash can away, but he didn't want two cold rays of light to hit his face. Shish, shish. Lark's pupils shrank suddenly, so fast. Due to the angle, the two ninjas jumped up high, and when the sword was approaching, Lark directly charged into him savagely. Boom, crack, crack. The two ninjas' eyes bulged, and they were hit against the wall with two puff sounds. They slid down into the pit, and their long knives buzzed at their feet. Lark was not spared and fell into the pit with a plop. The position where he was standing just now was originally on the edge. Puff. The two ninjas rubbed their chests, stood up staggeringly, and stood in front of the circular hole. There were 3 people standing in a deep pit with a diameter of 2 meters. Their swords were shining brightly. With their arms straightened out, the sharp blades could be placed directly on each other's necks. The knives made a crisp clang when they touched each other. As we all know, the ninjas of Shuheihui cannot speak. In order to fully play this role, Lark also imitates them to pretend to be dumb. After a moment of confrontation, the bodies of the two ninjas swayed. The red man held the knife in both hands and slashed diagonally from the left to the next. The black man on the left took the opportunity to bend down and pull the line. Lark didn't hesitate at all, and fought with a knife in both hands. In the collision just now, he has tested out that the two ninjas belong to the agile style, and their strength is not great. 4 or 2 dials are not suitable for such a small space. Power is king. At the moment of the collision, the red-clothed ninja felt a surge of power coming from the blade. The tiger's mouth was in sharp pain, and the red mask clung to his face. With a sudden light in his hand, before the red clothes could adjust, Lark raised the knife high and swung it down violently. Crack. Heiyi raised his head, and a blade rapidly magnified in his eyes. Puff. Right in the head. It turned into flying ashes with a bang, and the costume sword fell to the ground. The red dress looked up. Lark. Cut crookedly. This meal gave the red-clothed ninja an opportunity. He quickly took out a small black ball from his waist, smashed it on the ground, grabbed the silk thread at the moment the black mist appeared, jumped up and stuck it to the top of the pothole. Boom. A cloud of black mist exploded, and the pit was instantly invisible, followed by a clanging sound. Unable to see anything, Lark could only chop randomly in a general area. Crack, 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 PFF'd. Just as Hong Yi held the metal ball, the light of the saber sliced across his neck, and the metal ball fell to the ground. Dang bang. Got it. The black mist is just a cover-up, and it lasts for a short time. After a few seconds, the smoke dissipated, revealing 2 sets of ninja uniforms, an intact black sword, and a broken sword. The small silver-white metal ball lay on the ground, and the black soil could not hide its light. With the long knife sheathed, Lark bent to pick up the metal ball. The first time they were attacked, the first thought of the two ninjas was not to run away, but to pull the silver ball, which was obviously very important. The moment he touched it, the earth kept trembling, the surrounding soil fell, and the faint screams of the crowd could be heard in his ears. Earthquake. Just as he was confused, Jarvis reminded him hastily, "Boss, run, there's a big green monster coming this way." Big green monster. Military. Hulk. The moment he thought about it, Locke's face turned green. He is now under a building. With the destructive power of that big guy, if he walks slowly, he must be buried under the building. Locke grabbed the metal ball and subconsciously put it back into the storage space, but a string of red words popped up in front of him. Warning, item level is too high to earn. Lark cursed again, and then a smile broke out on his face. I found the treasure. The rumbling sound behind him was getting closer and closer. He quickly put the equipment dropped by the ninja into the space, and jumped with the iron ball. The moment he landed, the alley wall shattered, and with a loud roar, a big green foot fell from the sky. The lights in the distance disappeared in an instant, the sky fell into darkness, and as far as the eye could see. So big, so green, so smelly. Roar. Time seems to stand still. Locke's legs squatted down slowly, then rebounded and stretched straight. Go with. The big foot falls, with a piece of rubbish in the crevice. Lark took off and jumped to the side. Big. The big foot continued to fall, and the wind pressure pressed the ninja to his body. Father. Puff. Boom. Rucker rolled and fell to the ground. With a loud noise behind him, Hulk crashed into the building and left gracefully. Hoo ho 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 ho. Locke slumped on the ground, breathing heavily against the broken bricks. Just a quick glance showed that Hulk is at least twice as big as in the movie. Can you imagine the feeling of a car hitting your head? So horrible. At that moment, he didn't even have time to put on the armor, so he could only jump out with the subconscious reaction of his body. Several helicopters in the sky turned on their searchlights, looking for traces of the green monster, and the large forces on the ground followed the guidance and continued to intercept. The rumbling sound resounded through Manhattan. Lark stood up and walked out of the alley, while wrapping the silver metal ball around his waist. You have to leave quickly, there must be ninjas around, and without wearing armor or summoning animals, you can't defeat them with brute strength alone. It's a pity that the idea was very good. Just 2 steps away, it was dark all around, and several ninjas flashed out from the building, the wall, and the corner, and surrounded Locke. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rucker moved toward the base of the wall, trying not to get caught. Tie the last knot, the ball is fixed, and the waist is shining with silver light. All the ninjas drew their knives at the same time, the red-clothed Sandman jumped up high in front, and the neon light outside the wall appeared on the blade. Chuck, chuck, chuck. Looking over, Lark quickly calmed down, reached his right hand into his chest, actually took out the ball he just picked up from the space and smashed it on the ground. Bang, bang, bang. The smoke exploded, and Lark turned around directly, stepped on the wall with both legs, then did a backflip, and the sharp blade cut through the corner of the clothes and slashed on the concrete floor. Ding, 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 puff. After landing, Locke rushed out of the fence, rode a motorcycle on the side of the road and squeezed into the traffic. The ninja behind him chased after him, jumping and chasing him on the roof of the car, between buildings, at a speed comparable to that of a car, and kept his eyes on his waist. At this moment, Manhattan is in chaos. Hulk went straight to the Hudson River, rampaging all the way, demolishing buildings and leaving a mess in his path. Dozens of military vehicles started racing mode on the street. Boom boom boom. Over there, speed up. Hurry up, we can't let that big green monster get away. What is that? The huge movement of Lark and Ninja quickly attracted the attention of the military. A helicopter in the sky adjusted its flight path and the searchlight shone on them. At the same time, the ground troops received orders and began to rush this way. Listen, the men in black below, you have been surrounded, immediately stop and get checked. Repeat, people below, listen, we have the right to fire. The plane lowered its altitude, the rumbling sound became louder and louder, the road ahead was blocked, a number of off-road vehicles were parked at the intersection, and soldiers in military uniforms were loaded and ready to shoot at any time. The speed of the ninjas behind them didn't slow down, and they didn't pay attention to all this at all. They were not afraid of death. There is no room for error in the metal ball. Passing cars one after another, the muzzle of the gun gradually enlarged in the eyes, the expression of the soldier was clearly visible, and his finger rested lightly on the trigger. Brake. The tires left a long trail on the ground, and the motorcycle turned around and rushed into the alley next to it. A small silver metal ball flew in the air. Seeing this, the ninja gave up the pursuit and pounced on the ball. Just when they were about to catch the ball, a thick voice sounded from the soldier's headset, "Fire!" Ta, 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 bang, bang, bang. Yellow sand fell all over the sky and disappeared without a trace as soon as the breeze passed by. A helicopter shakes twice and begins to land. Small metal balls rolled beside the manhole cover. On the other end, Lark stopped by the Hudson River on his motorcycle, then turned around and went back to the hotel, and at the same time dialed the phone. "Dudu, Prodigal Tony, did the military call you?" With the appearance of a magical creature like the Hulk, it's strange that Tony didn't come to get involved. There was a bang on the other end of the phone, as if they were slapping the table. "Yes, I wanted to meet that big man, but those fools in the military actually said that I should pay for the losses caused by the fight." "Are you kidding me? The land in Manhattan is worth billions of dollars, what am I? Fat sheep, fool, quote. Then how did you respond to them?" "Easy, fox squid. Ha 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 ha, Tony, I've decided that this will be your new nickname from today on." Luck's face almost cramped from laughter, and the phrase, "fat squid," was particularly flavorful. After venting, Tony also noticed the whistling wind and horn on the phone, and he asked curiously, "Are you going to meet him?" "No, according to my understanding of you, unless that big man ruins your hotel, you will never care." "Bingo, you guessed it right. I'm on my way back to the hotel. By the way, let the people from the information department put tonight's incident on the hot search list." "You don't need to tell me, Pepper is already making arrangements." "Okay, that's it." Lark hung up the phone, turned left and right, and parked in an alley 2 kilometers away from the hotel. Dozens of military vehicles formed a blockade line, and there was a long line of personnel at the gate. 2 soldiers held metal detectors and checked one by one. The helicopter landed, and the ruddy General Ross rushed towards the command vehicle with a square face. Boom. On the table against the wall, there were ninja uniforms, swords and some strange gadgets. Rose rummaged through, couldn't find what he was looking for, grabbed an officer and asked, "Where's the ball?" "Where's the ball?" The officer hesitated. "No, not found." He grabbed a ninja uniform, slapped it on the officer, and roared, "The group of magical freaks were all killed, and no one left, now you tell me I can't find it. Now, immediately, call everyone to search every car here, do you hear me?" Quote. The officer was shocked and saluted. "Yes, sir." After the officer left, Rose rubbed the well-made clothes in his hands, and the scene of the group of ninjas being shot and turned into flying ash appeared in his mind. This mysterious organization has mastered the collective strength of people. Conversion. The way is not only fast, but also fearless of death. Isn't this what he has always pursued, to be strong, brave, and obedient? On the other hand, Hulk, after so many years of research, only one case happened by accident, and the results could not be replicated. Although Hulk is strong, he is uncontrollable. This is what makes him most unbearable. A soldier who obeys orders is a good soldier. After thinking about it, General Ross sent an order to the people below, find these ninjas at all costs. Tri-wing building, war room. Uniformed intelligence officers walked back and forth, keyboards clicking away. Helu Dan stood in front of the big screen with his arms folded. On the screen, a group of soldiers were inspecting the cars one by one, and a man in a general's uniform became furious. Natasha came over and said, "Director, there is no figure of the ninja riding a motorcycle." The other party disappeared after entering the bridge. "I know, let the people below step up the search. With so many people entering New York, they must have their own channels." Helu Dan stretched out his hand to enlarge the screenshot. "Focus on this metal ball." "Understood. Director, do you think they were hunted down because of this black man who stole something from the organization?" Natasha asked in return. "Possible." Natasha came back after giving the order. She coughed while touching the railing, and said hesitantly, "Well, Director, Agent Hill sent another application, asking for supplies and equipment for 400 people." The black corned egg broke the defense. "Didn't she just take away a batch of supplies 2 days ago? Why do you want more? There are only a few people in the New York branch. Quote. The council allocated funds, and she recruited a lot of people herself." Natasha pursed her lips and whispered, "Then, give it." Black Braised Egg took a deep breath with his eyes closed, and after a while, he gritted his teeth and said, "Here." "Okay, got it." In a dark room, an old lady with gray hair is sitting on a round table, with 4 screens in front of her. "Mrs. Gao, I asked you to find the Keel quietly. Why did you make such a big noise? Do you know that once the military finds out, we will never set foot in New York again?" "Madam Gao, Madam Gao, Madam Gao, enough, the matter has come to this, what's the use of arguing?" A majestic voice interrupted, and then said, "Madam Gao, please keep a low profile first, and the lost Keel will be deducted from your share." Knowing that she was wrong, Mrs. Gao just said lightly, "Okay." Dang rang, dang rang, dang rang, dang lang, dang lang, dong lang. Boom. In the quiet alley, 2 mice pushed open the manhole cover, their eyes rolled around, and they seemed to have something in their mouths. Squeak, squeak. A big hand opened the manhole cover, the mouse released its mouth, put the thing on the ground, and then got into the sewer and left. His big hands grabbed the silk thread on the ground and pulled it alternately. Dirty, foul-smelling balls were lifted out. What? Holding his breath, Lark closed the manhole cover with his feet, put the ball under the faucet, and rushed wildly. After 10 minutes, Lark dragged a box away, the dirt washed away, and the smell that had been marinated for several kilometers could not be dispelled. Sour. Back at the hotel, hand the box directly to Hatham, and let him disinfect the balls, and he goes into the bathroom by himself. When I came out of the shower, the ball had been cleaned and placed on the table. Throwing away the towel, Rucker put the ball on the metal table against the wall. Jarvis scanned to see what's inside. Receive. The wall stretched and stretched, revealing several mechanical arms, and the results were simultaneously displayed on the large screen hanging there. "Sir, after scanning, it is found that this is a solid ball made of special metal. There is nothing inside." Lark raised his eyebrows. "Are you sure, Jarvis?" "Sir, the answer the instrument told me is this, but considering the results given by Boss Tony last time, the mysterious item has some kind of energy that cannot be recognized by science. Only when you open it can you know if there is anything in it. Then cut it open." Lark stood up, and a cover dropped from the wall to cover the ball, and a laser was emitted from the inside. Because he was not sure how big the mysterious object was inside, Jarvis could only cut slowly along the edge. Time passed slowly, and the ball became smaller and smaller. When it was only the size of a fingernail, there was finally movement. Jarvis immediately stopped cutting and raised the hood. "Is this the so-called high-level mysterious item?" Rucker rubbed his hands excitedly and picked it up carefully with a pair of tweezers. "Peanut-sized, milky white, irregular in shape. Just, ordinary. The scanner has no prompt and cannot enter the space. Lark can only try to absorb it directly. Warning, the item exceeds the current level of the gem, please increase the gem level or provide seed." Seeds. The source of power. Lark caressed the warm jade beads. "This must be the Keel, there is no doubt, the source of the power is also easy to guess. Dragon power. What are the grades of gems and keels? Where is the Keel buried?" Lark lowered his head subconsciously. "Try it." Lark stood up and walked out the door, grabbing a bottle of wine as he passed the living room. "Jarvis, call the prodigal Tony." "Falk and Tony, that sucks." After 1 month, the hotel has almost been remodeled. The functions of the 3rd to 10th floors of the basement remain unchanged, and they are still parking lots and accommodation areas. The 11th to 13th floors were opened up and transformed into a large auction hall, with ordinary seats below and VIP boxes on both sides. When Luck found Winston, he was standing on stage pretending to be an auctioneer, while hotel employees sat below pretending to be customers. A million first times, a million second times. Are there any friends with higher bids? The 3rd time in a million. Bang bang. "Winston, what are you doing?" Lark knocked on the door and walked into the hall, curiously asking. "Boss, you are back." Winston smiled and put down the hammer. aren't we going to hold an auction? We have been doing murderous business for so many years. It is rare to return to a serious business. I want to be a guest host. Fun. Of course, you have to agree. The staff set up the tables and chairs and left. Yeah, sure. Lark sat down, put the wine on the table, and said, when the people who come to the auction see that you are hosting it, their bids may be 2 levels higher. This is really not nonsense. When the manager of the dignified Continental Hotel in New York goes on the stage in person, when someone with a slightly lower status than him bids, don't you have to weigh it carefully? Otherwise, you won't be able to sleep well. Winston sat down next to him, and handed over his mobile phone, on which was a recipe. What does the boss eat? The hotel has recently recruited a new batch of chefs. Whatever, just make a little more. Tony and the others are coming over later. By the way, you can also call Hailsham and formally introduce you to each other. Okay, I'll make arrangements now. Before everyone arrived, Lark poured a glass of wine and put the Keel into soak for a while. It should be fine to drink, right? Locke felt a little thumping in his heart, and after thinking about it, he took a sip and drank it down. After drinking the red wine, my body felt warm, and my energy recovered a lot, without feeling any discomfort. Lac brand human body poison detector, perfect. The hotel was not far from the manor, and Tony arrived just after the dishes were put on the table, followed by Pepper and Happy. Tony was wearing a wine-red shirt, and his eye sockets were slightly dark. Pepper was a bit haggard in the company during this time, and rarely put on light makeup. Happy, with a bruised nose and a swollen face. Tony opened his arms and was about to habitually taunt his brother when Happy grabbed Lark's hand and began to cry. Boss, please help me quickly. That guy with Hawkeye is so mean. Look at what has become of my handsome face, my nose, and my mouth. As he spoke, he lifted up some of his clothes, and cried, the most pitiful thing is the abdominal muscles. I have practiced to the highest level of 99 and 1, but he beat me back. The emotions are full and the expressions are in place. It is really, the one who hears it is sad, and the one who sees it weeps. Lark's eyes twitched and he said seriously, Happy. Okay, you're crushing my foot. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Happy was busy for a while, making other people laugh, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. Laughing, Ah Bao held his head high, entered the arena with his harem domineering, his beard flicked, and his haughty eyes looked at everyone with disdain. However, he soon understood what revenge of this world meant. Ah Bao, come and let me hug you. Pepper screamed and trotted over to hug him. Ow! Ah Bao's ears pricked up, his big eyes blinked, and he started running in the hall. Woo! Pepper hadn't seen it for a long time, so naturally he refused to let it go and chased after it. After the fight, everyone sat down, exchanged a few words and started eating. At the wine table, Tony was uncharacteristically eating meat and drinking heavily, actively telling various jokes to make everyone happy. Others just thought he was drinking too much and didn't take it to heart. Taking another sip of wine, Tony rested his head on his right hand, staring affectionately at Pepper who was teasing Ah Bao. Stars twinkled in his eyes. The fiery gaze attracted someone's attention. Pepper turned her head. Her face was flushed because she had drunk a lot of wine. She blinked, touched her chin and asked, Are there any flowers on my face? Quote. Tony blurted out, Yes, you have flowers on your face. Perhaps hearing what he meant, Pepper gave him a gouging look. Suddenly, her gaze froze. Tony, your neck. Boom. Tony, what's the matter with you? You forgot your brother when you have a woman, and you don't even clink glasses with me when you drink. Locke put his arms around Tony, pressed his collar, pretending to be unhappy and said, No, only one of us can walk out of this hall standing today. As he spoke, he placed a bottle of red wine in front of Winston and said, Here, fill up the wine for us, and give everyone a drink by the way. Winston swallowed. He took a sip of this wine just now. Did it work? Just look at his flushed face. Winston took the wine glass, and only dared to pour a shallow layer of each, but Locke pressed it with his big hand and filled it up directly. Grr. After the meal, a group of ragged women walked into the hotel. Locke put on the earphones and spent the night in the cabin wronged. The sea is all water, boating is all about waves. Along the Hudson River all the way up, 60 kilometers away from New York, there is a Bear Mountain State Park. The mountains are undulating, the forests are dense, and there are small mirror-like lakes and winding streams between the mountains. The peaks are towering in spring and summer, and the sea of clouds is long in autumn and winter. The water flow burst, and a majestic figure walked out of the river. The soles of the feet are wide, the thighs are thick, the chest muscles are high and raised, and the unicorn arms are stronger than the big trees in the forest. The rain fell, and the already wet hair stuck directly to the body. Hulk stepped on his feet and looked up to the sky and roared. Roar, crack, crash, the rain is getting heavier. Hulk got even more annoyed. He stepped forward and vented his anger in the forest. The trees fell down, the soil flew up, and countless birds were frightened. Boom, 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 the rain continued to fall. After venting, Hulk drooped his shoulders and walked in the rain. Hulk hates the rain. Walking across the lake, crossing the Calls, and walking to dawn, he failed to find a place to shelter from the rain in the huge park. Hulk sat down against a big tree, his eyes wandering. Shushi felt bored, so he broke a big tree casually, stretched out his hand, and the branch broke off, and he got a wooden stick. Hulk slapped left and right, waved it at will, and muttered. Hulk hates the rain. Hulk hates the rain. Hulk hates the rain. Hulk stopped moving and suddenly looked up. There is only the sound of pattering rain in my ears. Hulk hates the rain. A clear, smart and sweet voice came from the forest. Hulk hates the rain. Hulk stood up. Hulk, I hate rain. Lin Zhong. Hulk, I hate rain. Hulk threw away the stick and walked towards the forest. Hulk, I hate rain. Hulk, I hate rain. Away from the woods, a very beautiful glazed macaw squatted on a branch. The bright yellow feathers on its abdomen were particularly eye-catching in the jungle. At this time, it also discovered the big guy Hulk, but it didn't seem to be afraid at all. There was light in its smart eyes, and it raised its head slightly. Hulk, I hate rain. The heavy rain stopped, the dark clouds dispersed, and the warm sun shone on it, like an elf. Hulk's eyes gradually widened, his eyebrows raised, and he raised his arms. Hulk hates rain. Hulk hates rain. Every time Hulk said something, the glass macaw repeated it. The clear and melodious birdsong is in stark contrast to Hulk's rough and loud voice, echoing in the forest for a long time. Gradually, Hulk's eyes narrowed slightly, his eyebrows raised high, his tone no longer angry, and he gradually became happy. After yelling a few more times, he lowered his arms, with his left hand hanging gently on his chest, and pointing at the parrot with his right hand, the corners of his mouth muttered, speaking in unfluent words. Hulk, I like you. The glazed macaw tilted its head, its nimble eyes seemed to be thinking, and immediately spread its wings, hovering above Hulk's head. Hulk, I like you. The bright yellow abdominal feathers made Hulk unable to move his eyes away. His body rotated along with the flight path, and his big feet stepped on the dead branches and leaves, making a clicking sound. He has never seen such beautiful colors. From the moment he was born, people greeted him with weird, frightened, fearful, and disgusting eyes, as well as the strange stick that could breathe fire and make him very painful. They don't like the Hulk, they hate the Hulk. Hulk doesn't like them either. Hulk, I like you. Hulk, I like you. After circling for a while, the glazed macaw landed on a branch beside Hulk, stretched out its beak, broke off a pine cone, and threw it on Hulk's head. Fruit, eat, fruit, eat. The anger passed in a flash, and Hulk picked up the fruit happily, but his hand was too big, and the fruit seemed small in his palm. What does eat mean? He scratched his head, bewildered. Idiot, idiot, the parrot chirped and taunted, fluttering its wings and landing on his huge palm. Its back was covered with completely different blue feathers, and its forehead had a pinch of green, which was the same color as Hulk's skin. Hulk raised his head and laughed happily, ha 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 ha. Idiot, idiot. The parrot scratched his palm twice with its paw, and when Hulk looked over, it held the pine cone with its paw, pecked at the gap with its beak, and picked up a brown pine nut and placed it in Hulk's palm. Fruit, eat, fruit, eat. The pine nuts were so small that Hulk couldn't catch them for a long time. Perhaps it was the parrot's brilliant colors and its clear and beautiful voice that kept Hulk from getting angry. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, he squeezed the bird away with his fingers, grabbed the pine cone and put it directly into his mouth, and swallowed it down, the crumbs spread all over his mouth. Crack, click, fruit, delicious. His throat rolled, Hulk's eyes widened, and he coughed. The greenery faded, his body shrank, and he turned back into Dr. Banna. Spring is here, everything is revived, and it's animals again. Ahem, cross out the whole paragraph. With the sun shining on his face, Tony turned over and continued to sleep, subconsciously placing his hands in familiar positions. Falling into a mass of warmth and delicateness, there was a cry. Tony opened his eyes in a daze and met a pair of charming silky eyes. He blushed and said charmingly, "You're awake, Pep. Tony's eyes widened, his mind froze. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? There was a flash of lightning in Tony's mind, and he sat up suddenly, but he didn't want to make too much movement, and his butt fell to the bed. Ah! Bang! Socks and trousers, messy shirts and tops were scattered everywhere, extending all the way to the door. Pepper was frightened by him, screamed as well, and immediately crawled to the bed. The corner of Tony's mouth twitched. At this moment, he felt a little diaphragm in his buttocks. He reached out and pulled out a pair of underwear that was torn in half. He looked up and met Pepper's eyes. "Are you all right, Tony?" The panties dangled twice. "Tony, Pepper. Ah, I'm fine. Well, I'll go out first, you can sleep a little longer." "Ah, I'll sleep again, you go out first." Tony stood up in panic and rushed out of the room. Pepper slammed the quilt back on the bed. Tony's mind was so confused now that he didn't even know how he got out of the room or who gave him the pants. When he came back to his senses, he had already walked to the rooftop. The sun rises in the sky and the breeze blows. It's warm, it's wet. Crack, what's on my mind? Hey, I was confused last night. I was so upbeat so early in the morning that I gave myself a big mouth. Do you want my help? White tee, floral underpants, slippers, coffee, playful eyes. Tony exploded in an instant. He cursed angrily, holding up his trousers and barefoot. You still have the nerve to laugh. There are so many rooms here, why do you put us together? Lark leaned back, leaned on the back of the chair, took a sip of coffee leisurely facing the rising sun, praised, "Okay," and said leisurely, "Would you like it? Do you know that I, Tony, never do anything to the people around me? From now on in the company." Lark picked up a piece of pastry and put it in his mouth. The rich aroma made him squint his eyes happily. The pastry chef was right. Would you like it? One piece was not enough, so Lark picked up another piece, but he didn't want Tony to grab it with his claws and stuff it into his mouth, and said fiercely to him, "Want? Haha, that's it." Lark pushed his coffee forward to prevent our billionaire from choking. Tony was also polite, grabbed the pastry and started stuffing it wildly, as if what he was eating was not food, but someone. Lark picked up his phone and flipped through today's information. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Tony had almost eaten, and said, "Well, the chest has faded, and it seems to have some effect." Hands froze in the air, pastries fell into cups, coffee splashed across the table. Tony stared at the sky for 0.1 seconds. The warm liquid dripped on his body, and he immediately looked at his chest. The reactor emits light blue light, and the surrounding skin is rosy, healthy and full of vitality. "Brother, saved me again." "Thank you. You're welcome," Lark accepted calmly. "You have never given up on me in these 15 years. He put away his mobile phone and walked to the edge of the rooftop. The sound of wind, cars, and crowds filled his ears. Across the street, the Rand building. 2 burly security guards threw a beggar with curly hair out of the door. "Gungan, is this a place where you can come? Let me meet you next time and see how I deal with you. Don't take a piss and look at yourself, a stinky tramp, dare to scam money from us, you want to die. Let me go, I'm really Daniel Rand, the son of the former chairman." Boom. The door closed, and people around pointed. Daniel stood up angrily and tried to break in again, but facing the security guard with his hands on his waist, he could only leave angrily and find another opportunity next time. "What are you looking at?" Tony asked curiously, holding the waistband of his pants and walking up to Lark. Due to the distance, he could only see passing cars and ant-like figures. Lark opened his arms and embraced the rising sun in the distance. The show has begun. After that, he took out the ninja suit and the sword, and pulled Tony to whisper, Build a few more sets of exactly the same. Jarvis algorithm learning. Proof against handgun bullets. This is simple, it can be made for you in 3 days. Okay, I will wait for you. Night. Dark clouds gather, the sky is gloomy, and there is no light to be seen. The air was suffocating and suffocating. Manhattan in the distance was brightly lit, and a big man in a suit and leather shoes walked into the bar, hugging left and right under the envious eyes of the doorman, and the girl's silver bell-like laughter spread far away. The aroma of wine and food spread to the street through the door curtain. Cuckoo, Daniel's throat moved. He returned to New York from Kunlun. All the money was spent on travel expenses, and now he has nothing. 2 vicious security guards scolded angrily. What are you looking at, stinky homeless man? Beg somewhere else, don't be an eyesore here, the guy in my hands is not a vegetarian. Daniel didn't take them to heart. He had been studying in Kunlun these years, and it was easy to deal with these 2 gangsters. However, in order to avoid trouble, he took a few steps back, stopped at a bush, and leaned slightly against the tree. Since the entrance of the bar can be seen here, the 2 security guards drove them away for no reason. He was waiting for someone, his best friend when he was a child, and now the sister of Rand's chairman. As time passed, Daniel's eyes became blurred and he fell into memories. A kunai flew from afar and stuck in the tree. Shish. Who? Daniel suddenly turned around. A red-clothed ninja stood at the end of the alley, with scarlet eyes, a tachi stuck in his back, and an old electric light flickering. He. Hong Yi's right hand moved slightly, and a black light flew out. Call out. So fast. Can't hide. Daniel's pupils shrank suddenly, and he took out his right hand from his waist, with his palm facing outward, covered with a faint golden glow. Ding! Kunai collided with it, making a sound of golden iron, and lost its kinetic energy and plunged into the soil. Daniel clenched his hands into fists and asked, "Who are you?" The red-clothed ninja didn't speak, and rushed out of the alley with both feet, flung out several kunai with one big hand, and then drew the taidao out of its sheath. Whizzing. Chuck. The upper, middle and lower roads were all blocked, and this mysterious killer obviously wanted his life. Seeing this, Daniel communicated with the power of the dragon in his body to gather in his fists, and swung his arms, all of which were blocked by the black light. Ding, 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 ding. He staggered his feet and walked around the grass, holding 2 light bulbs and rushing towards the mysterious killer. The wind blew up the dust and scattered it in the air. As he got closer, the ninja held the sword in both hands and swung it down from the air. The cold sword energy made his hair stand up. Idiot, don't you know that I am Iron Fist? Sink your waist, close your fists, and swing. Stab. The golden fist collided with the tip of the knife, and the brilliant flame lit up the alley. A black shadow flashed in the air, and Daniel flew out and hit the wall. Bang! Crack! The dust dissipated. Daniel slumped in the corner of the wall, with blood overflowing from the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand tremblingly. You are cheating. Boom! After knocking him unconscious with a knife, a similarly dressed ninja walked out of the alley, injected a potion into his arm, then carried him into a dilapidated car and disappeared into the alley. Not long after, several SUVs arrived, black suits quickly cordoned off the surrounding area, and the investigation team entered the scene. Scarface Rumlow watched them perform with folded arms. After some busy work, 2 black suits came over to report. Team leader, the kunai dropped at the scene is the same as the one in the database, and the other party finally drove westward in a car. Hell's Kitchen. Rumlow nodded, indicating that he understood. He pressed his ear. Director, do you want to search Hell's Kitchen? Fury's thick voice came from the earphones. Let people go in first to collect intelligence. The identity of the person they kidnapped is unusual. We will find out their purpose later. Understood. Rumlow hung up the phone and began to issue tasks. They guessed right. Rucker did go to Hell's Kitchen, but he just changed a few cars there and went back to Manhattan. The Continental Hotel is a firm supporter of the retro style, and the dungeon is a regular configuration. Not big, just enough to close about 10 people. The iron door opened, and 2 red clothes carried the unconscious Daniel through the corridor, throwing him into the last room. After leaving, the beeping sound of medical equipment could be heard in the dungeon. At 9 o'clock in the morning, when the stock market opened, the stock of Rand Building Group rose like a rocket, doubling in less than an hour. Various gossips spread wildly on the street, and coupled with the Rand Group's reputation over the years, countless investors seemed to have smelled the smell of bloody sharks and bought in one after another. Even many large capitals took the opportunity to acquire some. A huge amount of money was poured in, and the stock continued to rise. 20 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion, 45 billion. Just when countless stockholders were cheering and preparing to open champagne, news of an explosion was exposed, and the stock price fell to the bottom of the avalanche directly, the kind that could never be lifted again. The current chairman of the Rand Group, together with several senior executives, were taken away by the police on the spot on suspicion of dozens of crimes including murder, smuggling, child trafficking, and gambling. The conservative sentence starts at 50 years, and there is no death penalty for the Federation. Otherwise, according to the above charges, this group of people can eat enough peanuts. According to unnamed colleagues, no legal team in New York is willing to take this case. For a time, the Rand Group became a street rat, and everyone shouted for beatings. Countless people gathered in front of the Rand building to protest, and rotten eggs and cabbage were thrown all over the floor. The stench was overwhelming, and there were complaints. After 2 days of this, it was said that Tony Stark, the chairman of Stark Group, was blocked by a crowd while passing by Fifth Avenue. In anger, he spent huge sums of money to acquire the Rand Group. For a while, Stark Group's reputation on the internet soared, and the people of New York were proud of it. Iron Man has even gained a wave of die-hard fans, mainly shareholders who previously bought shares in the Rand Group. When the tide receded, the Rand Group announced its dissolution and disappeared from people's sight. Buzz. Raise the left side, don't fall. Come here a bit more, you can't let it go over there. Hey, right here, I'll count 1, 2, 3, put on both sides at the same time, 1, 2, 3. Boom, the ground trembled, and smoke and dust rose everywhere. With the target in hand, the engineering team started equipment and began filling the tunnel. From sunrise to sunset, crack, 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 crack. When the lights came on, what came into view was a yellow-brown cloud about 30 meters long and 10 meters high, occupying half of the underground space. Lark took a deep breath, carried the unconscious Daniel down the stairs, and threw it away. Boom! A bright red glow emerged from under the black hood. Buried deep underground for millions of years, the soft soil gradually became rough and hard after extrusion and precipitation. To match it, the earthy smell is particularly strong. Lark looked around, took off his coat, clicked his palm twice, and grabbed the hammer at his feet. Bending down, like a hard-working old farmer, sweating, his face is full of joy of harvest. Listen, what a sweet sound the hammer makes. 80. 80. 80. The soil fell and piled up, forming a hill at your feet. After a while, there was a crisp sound in the underground space. Ding! Found it. Lark increased his speed and quickly carved out an off-white, bone-like, wall. Warm as jade, the heart thumps and accelerates uncontrollably. The mysterious energy contained in this skeleton is absolutely massive. As long as you absorb it, you don't have to worry about energy in a short time. Maybe there will be additional surprises. For example, the cultivation and application of chi, or what he needs most urgently at the moment. Regarding how to absorb, the method given by Gems is very rough. Lark dragged the unconscious Daniel to the skeleton, and wrapped him with metal chains to prevent him from waking up halfway. Lark stood against the wall, pinched Daniel's spirit cap with his right hand, and stretched his left hand against the wall of bones. The emerald green Yumanji gemstone hung on his chest, swaying gently with his movements. Discovered mysterious energy and supporting seeds, have you started to absorb it? Yes, a violent aura emerged, covering the underground space. Winds surged, electric lights exploded, and the place was instantly plunged into darkness. Whirring, whirring, bang bang, bang bang, bang bang, bang bang. Buzz. A flash of green light appeared in the dark space, and it began to spin, turning into a huge vortex in the air. The speed became faster and faster, and golden lights gradually emerged on both sides. Wherever it passed, the muscles, bones and blood vessels of the arms were clearly visible. It hurts. This feeling is even more painful than the last time I strengthened my body. Lark gritted his teeth tightly, and the moment the sweat appeared, it evaporated directly and turned into countless water vapors. As the first ray of golden light poured into the gemstone, the vortex spun faster, and the golden light on both sides suddenly expanded, pouring out like a stream of water. With his power taken away, Daniel woke up and curled up into a shrimp. Unfortunately, his head was covered and he couldn't see anything. He could only yell into the air. Ho, ho, ho. You, what did you do to me? Luck's situation is not much better at the moment, so he will naturally ignore him and let him vent. Anyway, it is destined to be deprived of the dragon's power. On the left-hand side, the originally 10-meter tall, 30-meter long skeleton continued to shrink, and within a short time 1/3 of it disappeared. Here's the thing, just when you think everything is going well, something unexpected happens. With a click, thunder exploded in the underground space, and a primitive and wild atmosphere suddenly appeared. Boom! Daniel, who was kneeling, raised his head suddenly, and 2 golden lights shot through the night, illuminating the space. Who dares to steal my power? Daniel, no, should be said to be Shenlong Shoulao. Shoulao turned his head, and the brilliant golden light blinded Lark's eyes. At the same time, the originally honest dragon power suddenly boiled, and Lark's frail right arm burst instantly, turning into light particles and dissipating in the world. Boom! The seed lost connection, and the human gem suddenly dimmed and fell back to the chest, becoming ordinary. Ah! Lark couldn't help screaming anymore, clutching his broken arm, kneeling on the ground. Shoulao stretched his arms, and the iron chain broke with a bang. He took off his headgear, revealing the golden vertical handle, and looked at Lark with disdain. Shameless thief, you, a little guy who has not even reached the extraordinary level, dare to steal my power. You are really overestimating your capabilities. However, he blinked, and 2 golden lights shot out, inspecting Lark inch by inch. After a while, he smiled and said, your physical body is not bad, and it is many times stronger than my current barbarian trash. If that's the case, then I'll accept it. Ha 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 ha. He raised his hand and waved, and the wall of bones rose into the air, gradually shrinking in the air, and finally became the size of a Rubik's Cube, emitting white light and flying towards him. Just when the Rubik's Cube was about to fall into his hand, Lark suddenly raised his head, kicked his legs, opened his big mouth and swallowed the Rubik's Cube into his mouth. The teeth were broken, blood spread all over the mouth, and the smell of blood rushed straight to the sky. When it landed on the ground, Lark happened to be standing next to Shoulao, face to face. Shoulao was furious, brilliant golden light gathered in his hands, and was about to attack. The bones all over his body suddenly shattered, and the dark underground space suddenly lit up. The thief was close to him, with more air coming in and less air coming out. Sir, the battle armor has detected that your bones are shattered, and your vital signs have dropped rapidly. You must seek medical attention immediately. Jarvis, shut up. After saying this, Lark immediately fell into a coma. A battle armor that can only accommodate 1 person, what will happen if 2 people come in suddenly? Flatten. The seed returns to its place, and the gemstones start to absorb automatically. The moment the light appeared, Shoulao widened his eyes and roared. How is it possible? How can you have God? A white egg deep in the Kunlun pit quickly dimmed, and golden light flowed rapidly along the invisible passage. At the same time, countless people who practiced with dragon power as their source had their power, upgrades, and everything else stripped away, turning into yellow sand all over the sky. The underground space has become a golden ocean at this moment, and the battle armor is like a sponge absorbing seawater crazily. The golden light washes and washes over and over again, and mysterious lines gradually appear on the surface of the battle armor. Winston rushed into the aisle with a group of people. Their hair was disheveled, their ties were flying, and a leather shoe escaped. A few people in front were carrying a stretcher. Run faster in front, haven't you eaten? You guys, open the door quickly. When they rushed to the gate, everyone was dumbfounded. This gate was specially requested by Lark when it was designed, and it could only be opened from the inside after it was closed. What to do, what to do, what to do? Winston walked around in a hurry. As soon as he received the news from Jarvis, he brought people over. If something happened to Lark inside, his big brother would never let him go, including his group of people. I had just left the high table and had some hope of a comfortable life, but now I might be dead. No, we must find a way to open the door. He raised his head and shouted to several people, hurry up and get the cutting equipment. If you are slow, you don't have to come back. Received. Several people immediately turned around and ran outside. As soon as he put down his hand, a pair of golden and red armor flew in, and Tony's voice sounded, "Let me come." Tony fell down with a bang. His armor raised his arm and shot a red laser, cutting the metal gate. Running at full power, a half-person high hole was soon opened on the door. Tony rushed in first, followed by everyone. It was pitch dark behind the door, and with the help of a detector, Tony immediately discovered a suit of armor lying in the corner. Tony flew to the armor and tried to lift the face armor, but found that it was tightly stitched and there was no place to attack. What happened? Tony frowned, but he didn't have time to pay attention due to time constraints, so he had to ask Jarvis to check his vital signs. Mr. Lark's vital signs are stable and gradually increasing. He should wake up immediately after detecting neuronal fluctuations. As soon as the words fell, Lark opened his eyes. Black. Hell. Lark sat up, the battle armor jingled, and the warm touch was obviously still in the human world. In other words, he's still alive. Very nice. Lark took off his mask, and there was a mess of people standing in front of him. Tony, who looked arrogant but had a smile on his face, Winston, who had messy hair and was only wearing one shoe, Hatham, who was carrying a stretcher. There were many faces whose names he couldn't pronounce but were familiar to him. Thank you everyone, I'm fine. The sun was rising, and Luck was wearing a white t-shirt and doing tai chi like an old man in the village. A watermelon, cut in half for you, half for me, if you don't want it, I'll take it back. With a wave of the palm, the golden light continuously circulates, filters, and compresses in the body, transforming into a liquid. This set of actions was transmitted to him after the gem absorbed Shenron, and it can help condense his strength. Shenlong has mastered so many techniques during his long years. If he were to try them all at once, he would definitely become an idiot on the spot. Happy to mention the second crossing. And the dragon power extracted contained the resentment that the dragon had been unable to transcend for tens of thousands of years, although he didn't know what transcendence meant. The dragon power on his body now is purified by the Yumanji gemstone, without any impurities. As long as he trains and absorbs it step by step, it can be transformed into his own energy. After a set of punches, the energy mobilization became smoother, and he exhaled foul air, and Locke turned and went downstairs. It's been one night, and he has to go see Tony and see if he has any results. The use of the hotel rooms had been planned, and there was no extra space to decorate the laboratory. In the end, Lark's room suffered a disaster. The objects in the living room finally followed the footsteps of the bathtub. Throw it all away. Replaced by various new devices. Tony was wearing a rare white coat and stood in front of a circular booth in the middle of the living room, holding a tablet device in his hand. Several mechanical arms hold small hammers, scissors, towels and other strange things. Lark walked in the door. Bang. Tony, how's it going? Tony waved excitedly, with an abnormal blush on his face. This little thing is so amazing, come in and I'll show you something. Tony took the hammer from the mechanical arm, pointed at the chest of the suit and said, pay attention to this position. After speaking, tap lightly. When a layer of dark golden lines emerged, the hammer was bounced back, and Tony's hand trembled. The lines between Sumeru disappeared, as if they had never appeared. Have you seen it? Have you seen it? I have never seen such a magical thing before. There is no mechanical mechanism and no energy fluctuations. How did he do it with these mysterious lines? Tony quips, staring obsessively at the armor. Coupled with his unshaven and slovenly appearance at the moment, walking on the street is the strange neighbor next door. Lark couldn't help but shudder, it was so scary. He reached out and grabbed the hammer and threw it on the table, interrupting his journey of transformation. Tony, didn't you say that you want more samples of mysterious items? Then go take a shower and change clothes, and go shopping with me for the auction later. The armor is here anyway, so you have plenty of time to research. How could Tony give up halfway after getting his beloved toy? Crying that this is an insult to his personality and a stain on the scientific spirit. Correct. Then, the armor was retracted into the space, and Tony washed up and changed clothes. Lark walked out of the room just in time to meet Winston, thought for a while to stop him, and asked. Winston, what do billionaires like me usually do? Okay. When Winston heard this, he looked at Luck's current appearance, white t-shirt, floral pants, and slippers, which looked very much like the Cantonese he had seen in old movies. It's probably busy driving a luxury car and becoming a popular movie star. He wasn't sure. After all, the age difference between the two was too big. Commonly known as the generation gap. Rucker rubbed his chin and murmured, driving a luxury car. It doesn't feel good to be surrounded by people. Let's take a low-key car. How about Lamborghini? Very low-key. Okay, that's it. 2 Lamborghinis pulled out of the garage, their V8 engines firing on all cylinders, a roar that could be heard blocks away. The windows of the car were down, and the strong wind was blowing into the car. Locke's hair stood up, and the reflection of the building on the sunglasses receded rapidly. Luck stepped on the accelerator, the computer went straight to 100, and his whole body clung to the seat. Is this what drag racing feels like? It seems. Not bad. Ha ha ha, cool. Dee. Buzz. The red Lambo next to him suddenly turned the steering wheel and moved close to Locke. Tony's arrogant voice sounded in the car. Student brother, do you dare to compete to see who gets to the manor first, and the loser will perform for everyone at the wine table tonight. Steel pipe dance. Quote, what the hell kind of request is that? Caught off guard, Luck shook his hand and the car almost hit a street light. He turned the steering wheel and returned to the road, shouting. Why are you crazy, Tony? Ha ha, who told you brat to throw me and Pepper on the same bed that night, and I haven't settled with you yet. Just say whether you dare to compare. I lost it, the co-author is here for revenge, and besides, didn't you have a good time screaming that night? Locke didn't dare to say this, and he would really be chased and beaten. He subconsciously wanted to touch his nose, but he didn't dare to let go of his hands on the steering wheel. This was his first time racing, so he was inevitably a little guilty. Fortunately, after being promoted to an extraordinary body, his quality in all aspects has been strengthened again, and he has gradually left the category of human. Luck pressed the intercom. Let's compete, whoever is afraid of whom, but I want to add one more thing. You must wear high heels. Tony on the other end of the walkie-talkie said, "Shet," and then said, "It's a bet." With Jarvis's testimony, no one is allowed to play tricks. Make a deal. Tony then said, "Okay, 1, 2, start." Buzz. The red Rambo rushed out suddenly, throwing away a large section in the blink of an eye. "Die, you are actually cheating," Lark complained, stepped on the accelerator and followed behind. Drag racing in the city is illegal. The two of them drove not far away, followed by several police cars. At the same time, a chase was going on in Queens, with more than a dozen police cars chasing a blue BMW through the streets. It's a pity that not only did the technology Teakai fail to catch up, but he also crashed into walls, street lights, and flew into the river due to operational errors. Tony manipulated the red Rambo to dash left and right on the bridge, and Juan Fumo said, "Haha, you are too slow, can you hurry up?" After saying that, he still thought the speed was too slow, so he stepped on the accelerator again. This caused the surrounding car owners to raise their middle fingers and curse. The lips of a few dark-skinned boys danced. This lunatic. Lark cursed angrily and hurriedly followed. If something happened at this speed, even if Tony had armor, he would not be able to wear it in time. After getting off the bridge, with Superman's control, Locke finally saw Hongbo after 2 bends. Luck lowered the window and was about to speak when a blue BMW rushed out of the side road and made a gorgeous flick of its tail on the road, getting in between the two of them, just a punch apart. As the car moved forward, the steering wheel was turned slightly from time to time, the rearview mirror was scratched on the temples, and bits of paint were scraped off. A lone police car followed behind. Another lunatic. Shet. Even Tony couldn't help cursing this time. This isn't racing, it's killing his life. The windows are surrounded by black glass, who knows if there are a group of desperados inside. In fact, his guess was correct. Jarvis issued a reminder in the car. "Boss, this car has just robbed a bank in Queens and is being chased by the police. I suggest you raise the windows." Bad luck. Tony patted the steering wheel, pressed the button, and the car window slowly rose. He is Iron Man, not Ironhead. He wasn't wearing armor, and the car wasn't bulletproof. 2 bullets could take him away. There was no need to get angry with these people. At this moment, 4 black hoods were having a heated discussion inside the blue BMW. No, is that police car still following? Yes, he is still accelerating and will catch up with us soon. Shiete, when did the masters come to Queens, and they can actually follow behind us with a small broken car? Then what should I do? I can't get rid of the pursuers. Police support will be here soon. I can't outrun a helicopter with 4 wheels. The driver number 1 heard the words, glanced at the 2 Lambos on the left and right, and soon had an idea, and told the other 3, I will count 1, 2, 3 later, you throw 2 wads of money into the sports car, and you must let the police car saw it, understand? The black-hooded man sitting in the passenger seat hesitated, isn't this good? These 2 people are obviously not short of money. What if they are people we can't afford to offend? Good opinion, it's a pity they're running for their lives now. The carriage was only quiet for 0.1 second, and the 2 wads of money were ready. The blue BMW was driving dangerously. For the safety of his life, Tony slowly lowered the speed of the car while closing the window. The distance between the police cars shortened all of a sudden. This was exactly what the blue BMW wanted, and when the timing was right, 2 wads of banknotes flew out the moment the window closed, and 1 accelerated and fled. Buzz. The moment the unknown object flew out, Lark sensed it. He reached out to block it, and the banknote fell out of the window, rolled twice and landed in the middle of the road. The belt spread out, the strong wind blew, and the beautiful green knives flew all over the sky. Lark pressed the intercom. Tony, what did that car throw? Tony didn't react fast enough. He didn't realize it until the thing fell on his lap. When he picked it up and looked at it, his face was distorted with anger. He turned the steering wheel and got close to the black Lambo, threw the cash over, and said loudly, I'm so pissed off, these robbers actually sent me, a billionaire, with a $5 denomination. Ha, I won't play with you anymore, I'm going to show them some color. After Tony finished speaking, he closed the window bitterly, stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. Are you afraid of dancing in high heels? Poor excuse. This thing can't be bought today. Lark knows Tony's character very well. Once the desire to win is aroused, nothing can stop him. He will only give up when the game is over and the male and female are separated. Now there are only 2 outcomes in this game. Either they fail to catch up, or the group of people is sent to jail. If you don't catch up, there's something fun to do. Lark raised his eyebrows, threw the money out the window, and followed suit. Stolen money, holding trouble. This time the banknotes did not disperse, and after flying for a certain distance in the air, they hit the police car and got stuck under the windshield wipers. Boom, shit, these robbers don't want money. After receiving a sudden windfall, George's hands shook, and he immediately leaned on the steering wheel, stretched his hands out of the window, and carefully squeezed into the car with 2 fingers. Entering the border of Nassau County, which is not under the jurisdiction of Queens, it is very annoying to handle cases across districts without notifying the other party in advance. George pulled over, put the money in a sealed bag, and immediately called the headquarters to check the Lambo's vehicle information. The blue BMW has no license plate. After all, Tony is not a professional player, and the opponent's modified BMW has no worse power than his Lambo, so he lost in the end. Well, he said so himself. There was a battle at Stark Manor that night, and they were beaten to pieces, and no one in the flowers, plants, or woods was spared. A large number of machines were mobilized, and it took the engineering team half a month to clean it up, mainly because it took a lot of time to replace the soil. The smell of blood is too strong, and it will be buried for 3 minutes without being replaced. Now that it has been changed, Lax simply asks Jarvis to redesign it, purchase a large number of red maple trees, and bring a big change to the manor. It's a pity that the season is almost too late now. It will be really beautiful when it is red in late autumn. Oh, the important thing is that he didn't spend a penny on these. After the armor was born, a certain black braised egg sent a check through Eagle Eye. $100 million. The numbers are significantly higher. So, did you invite him to tomorrow's auction? Tony asked curiously as he walked out of the garage. Out of the corner of his eyes, Lark caught a certain figure, hugged Tony's neck, lowered his sight, and opened his throat to shout. Not only did I send him an invitation, but I also asked him to bring a few more beauties, all with different styles. When the time comes. This suddenly ignited Tony's passion. After the last time he had with Pepper, the two of them had been, well, weird. In other words, embarrassing is more appropriate to describe it. It was so frustrating for him. Or because Ethan was spared from death and didn't personally experience the betrayal of Obadiah's relatives. The understanding of life is not thorough enough. Tony hugged Locke with his arms back, his eyebrows beaming. Hey, it's just been a long time since we had a party. Let Winston prepare more costumes and props tomorrow, and we will have fun until dawn. On the stairs, Pepper put away her smile. Her pretty face was full of evil, her eyes were fixed on a certain big carrot, and her fists were clenched. Luke saw that the hole was almost dug, so it was enough to prepare, but Tony said that it was not enough, so this is where it is. He took the initiative to grab the shovel and bang a few times, not only digging a deeper hole, but also burying himself in it. His little eyes rolled and his beard trembled. He leaned close to Lark's ear and said coquettishly, "Do you still have the wine you gave us to drink that day?" After returning home that day, after some friendly exchanges with Happy, Hailsham, and Winston, he recalled that that night it was really till dawn. My pants were torn to pieces, and the soil was so strong. And thinking about it the next day, I was not tired at all. I wonder, which man can resist this temptation? If so, then he must be an O. The senior kind. This thing should be easy to sell, right? Especially the kind where the beautiful wife and concubine at home is getting older. Lark was lost in thought. Seeing that he didn't speak, Tony became anxious and couldn't help but patted the hand on his shoulder. Stop pretending to be serious. If you have anything to say, please give me a message. The conversation room had already reached the stairs, and Tony wanted to ask more questions, but a pale yellow appeared in front of his eyes. Gudong. Tony looked up slowly. A white belt was tied around the waist, outlining her slender waist. There is a fist on the left, and there is still a fist on the right. Further up, gone. Pepper snorted coldly, and left angrily, revealing the off-white flat shoes on her feet as she walked. Tony suddenly turned his head and looked at Locke with an unfriendly expression. HMPH, you cheated me again. From today on, I don't have your brother. After saying that, he turned his head resolutely and chased after him with small steps. Pepper, listen to me, explain, those words just now were asked by a friend of mine. You trust me. Lark grinned to the back of his head, almost laughing out loud. He was happy to see Tony deflated. The so-called happiness is based on the pain of others. Puff, quack. A sudden duck laugh came from behind the door, and Locke pushed the door open. Happy covered his mouth with his hands, his face flushed. He narrowed his eyes into a slit, trying to suppress his smile, but he didn't expect that as soon as he let go of his hand, he broke the defense directly, and his abdominal muscles trembled like waves. Quack. Boss, I'm sorry, I can't help it. Quack quack. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.